Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll see what happens. We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I am a dissident.
Don't move. Vote.
I'm saying no. Why you hear Palantir, 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 Palantir? It's not going to be stopped.
Seriously, we need to release the F-scene list.
Censors!
I am not a church boy.
Censors!
They're full-on vampires.
They hate our beef. They hate our beef. They hate our beef because our beef is beautiful and theirs is weak.
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a Thursday edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. What I do? Where's my sound? Where's my volume? Is that my volume? Am I coming through all right? Sorry about that. Didn't have my monitor. Didn't mean to jump the gun on the video there either. But hey, thanks everybody very much for being here on the Do Dissidents podcast Thursday matinee show. Appreciate you all very, very much. We got a packed show for you all today. We got Matt Weinglass from the Homeless Left coming on at the top of the hour. See, we got a nice crowd filing in here. Please do smash that like button on the way in. We got Butch Ware. I'm still waiting on Butch Ware to sign in here, but we do have an interview planned with Butch Ware here at the top of the show. Thank you, everybody, for signing in, for showing your support here. We got some super chats and some Rumble rants coming on here already. We got Kit from Hard Lens Media in the chat. Thanks, Kit, for being here. Butch Ware running for governor in California. Just waiting on him to sign in. I guess he's running a few minutes behind schedule. But I have emails out to the team there, so we will see what happens on that front. But thanks everybody for being here. I see Kinky in the chat saying she's writing in Butch Ware. We got some super chats and Rumble rants here. Vienticus Prime says, stands off to the side, arms folded and whistling while looking at random spots at the ceiling. Are you waiting for my email back? Oh, let's get that together. I'll get that together for Sunday, man. It's just too busy to get everything like that pulled together for the Thursday show, especially going Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, back to back to back. But thank you for reminding me. Thank you for reminding me. I hope you're whistling a good tune there, Vienticus. Appreciate that very much. Eric Rousseau says, I shredded my California mail-in ballot. I no longer vote. They will never allow anyone close to Dr. Ware's politics anywhere near real power. Revolution is only remedy. Thanks, Eric Rousseau. John Olmstead says, please cover the Voting Rights Act scandal when you can. You predicted this would happen, and now it is. You're absolutely right. When we are a team, Russell and I, it's easier for me to find time to do the longer, more conceptual pieces, which I like to do, especially when we get into like Supreme Court decisions and things like that. Like, for example, there was a story that we did about birthright citizenship. I kind of did a deep dive on that, dig into the theory and the precedent and all that, and the case law. And I like to be able to do that when we talk about Supreme Court rulings. And one of many drawbacks of not having Russ, is that I got to do 6-7 segments per show myself. And so it kind of takes time away from doing some of the more in-depth material. But you're absolutely right. We definitely should cover that. And now the gerrymandering is kind of in full swing. And so that will be something definitely worth covering. Oh, Vienticus. Okay, sorry. Did I misinterpret you, Vienticus? Did I mistake you for passive aggressively reminding me about your book deal Sorry about that, Vienticus. Appreciate that. Me Shoots Geeked here with the $3 super sticker. Thank you very much for that. Appreciate that very, very much. Thanks, everybody, once again, very much for being here. Strong crowd in here. 5:04 to start things off in the YouTube chat. 2:29 to start things off over on Rumble. Russell will be back next week. I see some people asking. Jay Alba, Russell will be coming back next week. I thought it was going to be the 12th. It looks like it will probably be the 14th that he'll be returning to the show. So it looks like the 14th will be Russell's return date. So 1 week from today. How's that, everybody? 1 week from today, Russell Dobular making his return to the Due Dissidents podcast here. Let me make sure they have what they need to get signed in here. They have the link. They got everything there. Okay. Here we go. Let's see. Here he is. There we go. Awesome. Okay. All right, folks. So let's get started with the show right now. Dr. Butch Ware is an educator at UC Berkeley, as well as a historian, an activist, and former vice presidential nominee for the Green Party in 2024 and current gubernatorial candidate in California. Pleasure to welcome to the program, Dr. Butch Ware. Nice to meet you.
Great to meet you. And sorry I'm running late. Fun fact, I am the absent-minded professor, and I locked myself out of my office. So I had to go upstairs
wow. Okay.
to the main history department office to have them let me in. So that was
wow.
Yeah.
Man, that is no, that's no problem. No problem at all. That is quite the thing to have happen. But appreciate you making it. It's a nice office there. Nice office.
Yeah,
I dig it.
I mean, it's kind of my little fortress of solitude here on UC Santa Barbara campus. I will just correct one part from the introduction.
Oh, what did I say? Berkeley? That's my fault. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry about that.
All good.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy to be with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's just you know what, because there was an event honoring Michael Parenti in Berkeley, California, a couple weeks ago that I covered, and so I had Berkeley on the brain. So my apologies about that. UC Santa Barbara. But I want to get into this. So you're running for governor in California on the Green Party ticket.
Yep.
You currently find yourself where a lot of Green Party candidates find themselves, which is in court over ballot access. So can you explain what's going on with that?
Yeah, so I mean, you set it up nicely. When I ran as the vice presidential candidate alongside Jill Stein in the 2024 presidential election, the Democrats spent over $20 million suing to try to knock us off of the ballot in 9 separate states. That was actually more than our total campaign funds raised, right? So they spend more trying to keep Greens off of the ballot than Greens usually spend to run, because they use that blood money for lawfare. So this particular instance was, I would say, especially egregious insofar as the pretext that they utilized to knock me off of the ballot in mid-March was that they claimed that I left a phone number unredacted on what should have been a redacted version of my 2024 tax returns. Okay, hold on. It gets better. So they said that there were 2 errors that I made. I left a phone number unredacted, and I over-redacted a business name in a separate tax return. Now, that business name is everywhere in all of the other documents. It's Ink of the Scholars. It's the community education platform that I ran for a couple of years as an LLC. So they sent me an email message at 4:50 p.m. saying that if I did not correct these 2 redaction errors in my filing, that I would be disqualified from the ballot. They sent it at 4:50 p.m. They said I had to correct it in person by 5 p.m. in Sacramento in hard copy. I live in Santa Barbara, and here I am in my office. And if you think that is a shit show, wait till you hear what happened in court. Because when we took them to court, listen, I had a war chest set aside because we knew that they would do this kind of thing. Amazing Palestinian lawyer Tawfiq Murar wrote the brief. We got into court, and our lawyers demonstrated in court that they actually had the correct forms in their possession the whole time. The whole thing was just a pretext. And they also introduced a falsified email thread to make it look like I wasn't complying with the previous timely document request. So they're literally falsifying evidence, We know, by the way, that they do this because they did this with Matt Ho in North Carolina a couple of years ago. They literally had people calling, impersonating Green Party officials, telling people to recant their signatures because Matt was no longer. So there's no dirty trick that they won't resort to. So all of this is just to say they had the documents correct the whole time. They lied in court, and Gavin Newsom does what he wants to with the judicial system in the state of California. So we were unable to get redress from the state courts. So we're in federal court. And right now, at any moment, actually, the ruling could come down from a federal judge, which could demand that they put us back on the ballot, that all the printed ballots that are found at election sites contain my name, that they might be required to send out an individual mailer to every registered voter in the state. There's lots of different ways that we can get remedy because they flagrantly broke the law in every way. Last point on this. In the court filings and in the appeals and in the federal court filing, they retreated from defending any of the things that they did. They did not contest any of the procedural violations. They just simply said, but it's too late now. What can we do about it? The ballots have already been mailed out. So they are playing in our faces as they so frequently do.
Yeah, you said the line, I forget where it was that you said it, that I heard it, but you said something like Republicans steal the elections after they happen, the Democrats steal them in advance, right?
Correct, yeah. And that's literally it. And because Republicans steal elections by trying to limit who can vote, and that's their, disenfranchisement. Democrats also try to steal elections by limiting who you can vote for. So one, goes after, and with the disenfranchisement route, the other tries to knock people off the ballot ahead of time and steal elections in advance.
So this has been a very tumultuous primary. First, it looked like, Katie Porter was going to win. Then she got exposed as what our illustrious dear leader would call a nasty woman, I guess. Then it looked like Eric Swalwell was going to take it, and he got exposed as a nasty man. Made Me Too look like a Mad Men office party with everything that's coming out against him. Yes. And now you have polling here showing Javier Becerra and Steve Hilton wrestling for the number one spot, at least according to this data. And then you have Chad Bianco underneath him, and then Tom Steyer down at 12%. Now, this is a jungle primary, which means the top two candidates advance to the general election, regardless of which party that they're in. And this jungle primary system kind of seems like, on the one hand, it presents a real opportunity for third parties, since you don't have to get 51% of the vote right away. You can get on the ballot with 15 or 16% if enough candidates are in the race to split things up. However, the other side of that is that it also seems to make it easy for the major parties to flood the field with sheepdog candidates. So ultimately, there are pros and cons here for third parties. Do you think the jungle primary system on a whole is a plus or a minus for outside parties like the Greens?
It's a huge minus on the whole for an outside party like the Greens. And what we need is ranked choice voting, right? And we need things that take the lesser of two evils out of the calculus for voters, so that they can vote for what they want. And having said that, this particular primary in the state of California revealed a structural weakness, which is part of the reason why I ran for governor rather than some other office, because there are more registered independents in the state of California than there are registered Republicans. The state leans far enough to the left that they were more vulnerable in many ways to an attack from the left than an attack from the right. And actually, that's the reason why they moved to knock me off the ballot. So you showed those numbers, but just for some context, and I'll try to do this the short way. I'll give the punchline first and then the history. Sure. The day that I was knocked off the ballot, we had polling numbers, public polling, that had me at 5%, with Swalwell, Steyer, and Porter all at 10%. Okay. And I want you to understand the existential crisis that must have presented for Team Blue genocide, because Mamdani was 25 or 30 points off the lead at the same point in his race.
Wow.
Here I am 5 points off the lead. And that's just what we know from publicly available polling, because I don't waste money and can't waste money on running our own independent polls. I am thoroughly convinced that they had internal polling that had me running neck and neck with those top Democrat candidates. So they needed to get me off the ballot. And the way that they were doing this discursively in the public sphere was saying, we have to whittle down the field. We've got to get these people out of the field. Otherwise, we're going to end up with 2 Republicans, right? That was the rhetorical thrust. And so they used this legal mechanism, to try to whittle the field for them, because they know exactly how vulnerable they are. One last point on this. I hate quoting Trump, even though, it's a fair quote, to call him, to use it. I would have just called her Karen Porter, which is actually what I called her in a rap song. One of my 3 political diss tracks that the campaign has released. She imploded because she's just a terrible, terrible candidate and a terrible, terrible human being. And there's a really critical backstory that I just want to tell in this environment. So because I was the Green Party candidate for vice president, and we received almost 1 million votes, I was allowed to participate, invited to participate, not allowed, invited to participate in the major candidate debates last summer. And after the first of these, SEIU Local 1000, when they closed the door, and Katie Porter was in it, Javier Becerra was in that debate, SEIU Local membership was polled as the best candidate that they saw. I beat the top 2 Democrat candidates, Porter and Becerra, together. And that was when Eric Swalwell was called into the race. We got our first polling numbers from Eric Swalwell's campaign because he asked questions about me in his viability study as to whether he thought he should run. So I knew that we were polling at 2% already in December. We were at 5% in January. They perceived the existential threat and they moved to strike me from the ballot.
It's interesting you say that, because I always thought to myself, okay, why are so many Democrats getting in this race? Because, of course, the jungle primary creates all kinds of caveats and challenges, right? So it's not inconceivable that even though California is an overwhelmingly blue state, it's not inconceivable to look at these numbers that if enough Democrats are in the race and few enough Republicans are in the race, the top 2 candidates in the primary can both be Republicans, and California can get stuck with a Republican governor. So I'm thinking to myself, why is everybody jumping in this race on the Democratic side? Doesn't that only increase the chance that a Republican is going to end up the governor, because you increase the chance that the top 2 candidates are GOPers? And what you seem to be saying is that you were a factor in that. And this is kind of what we were talking about, which is like we interviewed my friend Shama Sawant, is running for Congress in Washington.
Yeah. And I'm a big supporter of Shama, by the way. She supports my campaign. I support hers.
Awesome. Great to hear that. Shama's awesome. But she is of the opinion, because she's running in a very blue district where she is likely to outperform the Republican in the primary, which means it could very well come down to Adam Smith versus Shama Sawant in the general election. And what she's afraid is going to happen is that they're going to run sheepdog Democrats as progressives who don't necessarily have to win. They just have to beat Shama in the primary to develop a sort of left alternative to Shama Sawant, and that would sink her candidacy. And what it sounds like you're saying, I don't want to put words in your mouth, is that people were concerned about a third party rising, and that's why so many Democrats flooded the field, even at the peril of swinging the whole state into Republican hands.
Because they know that there is actually no scenario in which the state will get swung into Republican hands. So they do this routinely. They flood the market, tell you that you have to vote blue no matter who. They use this to fundraise on a massive scale, and then they whittle the field at the very last moment because the whole goal was to actually exclude any non-corporate option. And just to be clear, even if, and this is not going to happen, but even if it were to be the case that Hilton and Bianco finished in the top 2, and there was a Republican, do you know that the California Democrats have already, floated the idea of changing the legislation so that they could run a write-in candidate in November, despite the fact that write-in candidacies are not allowed for the general election. They'll do whatever they goddamn well please, right? They make the rules up as they go along, and they try to muscle out any competition. And you can be sure that if a judge ruled it unconstitutional for them to change it and have a write-in candidate, and you had those two Republican candidates and one of them would have to win, that there would be an immediate recall election undertaken by the Democrats in order to knock that Republican out of power. There is no scenario in which Team Red is going to actually inherit the governor's mansion in California. It's all fear-mongering tactics that are designed to actually keep a people's choice from emerging. And this is really key for people to understand. If you believe for a hot second that we could end up with two Republican candidates, you know what the best way to avoid that is? Vote for Butch Ware. Because part of the reason why I targeted this election is that we can get the Republicans out of the race in the primary and just have it be blue versus green. And for those progressives or, left-leaning liberals out there that don't think a Green Party candidate can win, which would you rather have? Me pulling them to the left with an actual populist agenda, or them chasing the Republicans to the right the way that they do in every other election? Last point on this. Voter turnout is extremely low in primaries. It was 5.5 million in 2022. It might be 6.25 million. When you're talking about getting between 13 and 17% of the vote, you're talking about essentially getting 1 to 1.2 million voters engaged and excited about a candidate. For context, there are 1 million Muslims in the state of California, and more than 50%, at least 53% of California Muslim voters voted for Dr. Jill Stein and Butch Ware for the White House in 2024. All we need to do is engage and activate communities that don't normally see themselves as invested in this process, and we can run to a top two finish. And that's what they understood when they saw those polling numbers and saw me getting traction in a bunch of diverse communities. Then that sharpens the nature of the existential threat for the Democrat establishment.
Wow. Thank you for that information. I didn't know that they were going to just that their fail safe is to just change the rules. Now, they wouldn't change the rule for you, obviously. If you fail at the write-in in the primary, then you're out, and it's illegal to run a write-in in the general. See, I didn't know any of that. That's good information to have, and it just further exposes just how far they'll go to close the so-called democratic process off, right? Okay, so I want to get into your platform a little bit. We're here with Butch Ware, gubernatorial candidate for the Greens in California for 2026. Item number 1 on your platform, we're not going to go through all these, but I want to focus on this because it is first on the list, and I think there's good reason for this to be first on the list. You have your housing platform here. I'm not going to read these bullet points to you, obviously, because I want you to lay out the platform for us, but first, before you get into these, can you tell us a little bit about just how dire the housing market is in California, both for renters and would-be buyers? I have some family out there. My wife loves the weather out there. I work remotely. She has an international certification, so we could kind of go anywhere. And so she's like, yeah, I would love to live in Southern California. I'm like, yeah, one look at a realtor.com or an apartments.com listing is like, nope, I think we're stuck here on the East Coast. So how bad is it out there, and why? Because your platform seems to address some of the causes.
It's unspeakably bad. There's an affordability crisis nationwide, but it is exponentially exacerbated by the housing costs inside the state of California. Californians are routinely paying 80-90% of their monthly income just to keep a roof over our heads. We have 14 vacant properties for every homeless person that sleeps on the street in the city of San Francisco, right? We have the current Democrat administration, Gavin Newsom, passing vagrancy laws that will lock you up if you are found sleeping in a park or in your car. But they provide a carve out for students and faculty that are sleeping in their cars because they're homeless, unable to afford any kind of roof over our heads. And I just want you to imagine the kind of dystopian reality that is, that Team Blue, the supposed good guys, right? Gavin Newsom's out sweeping homeless encampments personally. And the solution that they offer is to get a carve out so that you won't go to jail if you are a faculty member receiving a check from Cal State or the University of California and you can't keep a roof over your head so that you have to sleep in your car, that's the solution. So we also know that every time there's $100 median increase in the rent, there's a 9% increase in the homelessness rate. And we know that there's 187,000 people that sleep on the streets every single night now in the state of California, in a state that has 186 billionaires in it. So this is the highest wealth inequality of any state in the union, and we are tied with Louisiana for the highest rates of pure poverty in the nation. So, by the way, they can't blame any of that on Team Red fascism. That has all been accomplished with 60 years of Democrat majorities and supermajorities in the state legislature. They've run the state directly in the ground. So it's a lousy doctor that provides a diagnosis without a remedy, right? So here's the remedy. The remedy, not to read from the card, I don't need the card. It's simple, housing first. So you take care of this basic need because housing is a human right, as is healthcare. And the simple way to think about it is, everybody eats before anybody gets seconds when you go to eat with your family, right? So it's the same rule, except applied to housing. Everybody gets a roof over their head before BlackRock and Blackstone get 2,500 or 3,000 or 10,000 vacant properties. There's 1.2 million vacant units currently inside the state of California. And Team Blue Genocide, all of their candidates, and actually, sadly, even another left candidate, their solution is to build more housing, which is essentially just a handout from California taxpayers to developers. We actually just need resource distribution. So my solution is I'm going to tax the shit out of Blackstone and BlackRock, and it's a combination of the carrot and the stick. Would you like us to seize this with eminent domain, or would you prefer getting paid 4 cents on the dollar for all of those vacant properties and sell those back to the state? And that becomes the basis for social housing, which is operated the way that it is throughout Europe. In Vienna, Austria, 60% of the market is social housing that's publicly operated, run at cost rather than for profit. And it serves as a natural check against speculation in the private market. The average renter in Vienna pays 25% of their monthly income on rent, and that's what we need. Because I would love to have you out here, in Cali. The weather is amazing, and California is a beautiful, beautiful place, but it does not work for ordinary working people with these kind of housing costs. I've talked about the rental market, but the beauty of this particular solution, which no other candidate has proposed, is that it actually takes out both the home ownership crisis and the rental crisis, because actually those private equity firms are driving both. The new developing doesn't actually fix both problems. Nationwide, in 1983, the average age of a home buyer was 31. Now that is 59. So people are being priced out of the prospect of ever owning a home inside the state of California, and we got to get that right.
Yeah, when you rattle off just the state of housing in California and point out how, the Democrats own this, it just brings to mind what a reputational drag California has really become on the left, even though, you and I and people watching are sort of tuned in enough to know the Democrats are not a left party by any means. But the way it's framed in the media, the Democrats are a left party. And the way I think the average person absorbs this is they say, well, look at California, this wokey, libby, socialist, commie utopia, and look at how unequal it is. It represents the left very, very poorly because it plays into people's worst fears about what socialism is, which are bloated, incompetent bureaucracies that are sort of incapable of meeting the needs of its people. I mean, we saw that on full display with the fires, January 2025. And so as someone who's running to the left of the Democratic Party,
Yeah.
Do you think this is creating a big public image problem for left of center people more broadly, even though we'd, of course, argue that the state is more a function of this unholy alliance between capital and a neoliberal bureaucratic setup than an actual left state?
Yeah, it's a great point. All of the things that, people associate the failures of, socialism with are actually produced by the crisis of neoliberal capitalism inside the state of California. So just to be clear, neoliberalism is a word that people misunderstand a lot of times. They think it has something to do with liberal versus conservative, but it doesn't have anything to do with social positioning. It's about economics. And neoliberalism is just what Ronald Reagan described as trickle-down economics. The idea a rising tide lifts all boats, right? But it turns out that when corporations and rich people have a rising tide, they just buy more boats. None of it trickles down. And fun fact, I'm a historian. I'm in my office here at UC Santa Barbara. Trickle-down economic theory, neoliberalism as we've come to know it, those public-private partnerships, that was derided and mocked in the 19th century. It was called horse and sparrow theory. The idea being that you shove a horse's mouth full of so many oats that its stomach can't digest it, and the sparrows will be able to come through and pick the grains out of the feces. And that's what we're doing. We are sorting through billionaires' shit in order to try to find enough just to survive. And what that means and I need the Democrat voters to hear this. Gavin Newsom is so far to the right of Ronald Reagan in his commitment to neoliberal economic models that you cannot see Reagan from where Newsom is standing. If you want to use this left to right political spectrum, we have two far right parties in the United States of America because they are committed to capitalism, imperialism, white supremacy, patriarchal domination. They both do all of the things that fascists do. And yet they persuade people inside of that structure to believe that there is a left and a right inside that structure. There isn't, right? This is just a right-wing political machine that has a factional dispute inside it between Team Blue and Team Red. Julius Nyerere, African revolutionary, said, of course, the United States is a single-party state, but with typical American extravagance, they have two of them. And I don't even like to talk about running as a leftist candidate, even though objectively on that scale I am, because these are centrist issues, right? Universal single-payer healthcare. 81% of Californians are in favor of that. So where does that put us on the ideological spectrum of where people actually live? Dead in the middle of it. Those guys, the Democrats and Republicans, are so far to the right that nothing makes sense. Universal housing affordability, our social housing program, 70-30 issues, right? So for me, we have to unplug people from this matrix, that this factional dispute inside the ruling party of the United States, Team Blue genocide and Team Red fascism, that's the battle between good and evil. We need to get them to understand that a true people's agenda can only come from outside of that duopoly.
All right. I want to ask you about data centers too, because this is the kind of issue that I feel like, I told Sham about this when I interviewed her. If you remember, there was this article that went super viral a few months ago about how we are sort of we're in the calm before the AI storm, just the way like January was the calm before the COVID storm. You heard, okay, there's this virus somewhere. It looks like it's, getting a lot of people sick, and maybe this will affect our quality of life. And then one day, boom, you're locked down, can't go anywhere. Your life is completely different. AI, this article argued we're in that phase where it's going to hit us all at once, that this becomes unescapable and redefines not just the way we spend money and work, but the way we live. Like, this is a real societal threat. And the epicenter of this seems to be in California. California will soon have more than 300 data centers, but where will they get their water? So you have an issue here where environmental concerns, economic concerns, and I think just like social and cultural concerns collide. As a parent, I have 3 kids. I don't know which direction to point them because I don't know which skills are going to be at all useful to them when they turn 18, 10 years from now. So it creates a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety, a lot of precarity. And California seems to be leading the way on this. What is the attitude of people in California? Because it seems like there's widespread protest to all of these things. People seem overwhelmingly united against data centers. You're running for governor in California. What's your position on these, and where is the public at on these?
The public is, of course, massively opposed. And it does not matter to the political establishment for a simple reason. Who funds you runs you. And they are funded by these corporations. They're bought and paid for. So despite the fact that there's overwhelming societal resistance to this exploitative and extractive use of so-called AI, and I'll get to why I call it so-called AI in just a second, that is not going to move our political authorities in the least, unless and until we have political authorities that aren't bought and paid for by those corporations. So what would I do? The first thing to understand is I'm representing the Green Party after all, right? The Green Party is founded in 1984, and the largest independent third party still on the board, right? And with electoral access, because we have run on environmental justice and environmental sanity for 40 plus years. And there are differential societal effects. Environmental racism determines who suffers the most, right? It's not for nothing that Elon Musk puts up his biggest data center outside of a Black community in Memphis, siphons off the water, pollutes the groundwater. Black and brown communities take the brunt of this, and they will take the brunt of this inside the state of California. But let us be clear, it's going to affect everyone. So I am at war with those that would siphon off our water, pollute our environment to produce these massive data centers. Similarly, I am at war with corporations that will use so-called AI, because these are really just large language models. They don't think, right? They predict what words should come next, right? That's what OpenAI, DeepSeek, ChatGPT. They're language models. They don't think, at least not yet. Anybody that wants to use that to obviate human jobs, China has already passed laws saying that corporations that use AI to eliminate jobs will be punished. And we could easily pass those same kind of laws. And similarly, China has also regulated environmental degradation associated with these data centers. There are Scandinavian countries that have put their data centers underwater to use seawater to cool their systems. But for me, the fundamental problem is not so-called AI. The problem is capitalism, because the reason why it functions in these extractive and environmentally destructive ways is because that's the cheapest way for these corporations to do it, and for them to continue to get subsidies. Because remember, OpenAI still has never turned a profit in all of its existence, and it's now valued at $882 billion. So we are subsidizing these people to extract our resources, when instead we should be using AI and any other technological innovation as a publicly owned utility and as a public good, because I think that we could be using this computing technology. This is what they promised us, right? We would be able to work 3 or 4 hours a day and have the productivity that we need. This is actually supposed to be making working class people's lives better, instead of liquidating our jobs and stealing all of our liquid, right? Stealing all of our water. And unless and until you have political authorities that are willing to put their foot down and fight for the people, things are going to get worse. We are rapidly accelerating towards a dystopia.
Yes. And I feel like we are already in the 11th hour. And notice, like, none of these issues come up on the campaign trail. I mean, none of what Donald Trump is doing is stuff he talked about doing. Didn't talk about regime change in Iran. Didn't talk about data center expansion. Democrats didn't run against any of these things. It's like these things don't get talked about on the campaign trail. We get distracted with culture war bullshit on the campaign trail. And then they come in, and boom, now all of a sudden, data center after data center.
It's been their agenda the whole time. And I feel you moving to the next question, but I'll just get this shot in. And the reason why you don't hear it is that if you make a Venn diagram, right? So here's the Democrat donor base, here's the Republican donor base. There's your Venn diagram, right?
Right.
Same donors for both parties. The tech bros are going to win no matter what. APAC is going to win no matter what. Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, Boeing, General Dynamics, Northrop Grumman, the weapons manufacturers, they're going to win no matter what because they're funding both sides. And they stage a WWE battle, right, between Trump and Newsom when they're laughing all the way to the bank the whole time.
All right. All right. So last big question. I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit, but last big question. Thanks so much for making time again for us this morning. But you made the rounds on MAGA Twitter last week because you said the R word. This is their second favorite R word now. They like saying the first one now. There's license to say their first favorite R word, but now reparations is the one that they really go crazy over. So here, RNC Research says California gubernatorial candidate Butch Ware says he will take $14 trillion from taxpayers to pay as reparations. Let's take a look at this video that they shared.
The Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, which has been leading the charge for reparations, does not do institutional endorsements, but I am proud to bear the endorsement, the personal endorsement of Chris Lodgson, its intellectual leader. I have been 10 toes down for reparations for my entire career, and I will also just make the point that the Green Party has as well. The reason why I accepted Dr. Jill Stein's invitation to run as the vice president for the Green Party in 2024 was I asked her about reparations, and she said they behave as though it's incalculable, but it's been calculated many times. It's 14 trillion at least that is owed to the descendants of the enslaved, and I'm in favor of cash payments.
Okay, now I do want to talk about this issue just as an issue, because it's an issue that I'm very much interested in. Yeah. But before we do that, though, I think because you're running in California, I think we should point out and go through, because I'm sure you are familiar with the fact that Gavin Newsom has this like very funny kind of history on this issue. We've covered this a couple times on our show. It hasn't come to a head in a while, but this is a report from October of last year. Gavin Newsom embraced reparations at first. Now he's slow rolling them. So basically, after the BLM summer, after the murder of George Floyd, Newsom said, okay, I am assembling a task force or commission of sorts to study reparations and then make recommendations to the government. From there, we've seen a whole lot of shenanigans ensue. So do you want to just lay out his history on that? Because this issue is particularly contentious in California because I feel like Newsom wanted to get out in front of the issue since, this racial justice was really in the zeitgeist in 2020. But since then, we've seen a lot go on that is puzzling, to put it mildly. So do you want to lay that out for us before we delve into the substance?
So you've got, Nancy Pelosi and the other, murderous, racist corporate Democrats wearing kente cloth and kneeling and doing the kind of performative symbolism of solidarity with an African-American community that they have ruthlessly exploited and extracted from. Joe Biden and Bill Clinton were the architects of the '94 crime bill that locked up my whole generation. I'm 52 years old. You might not realize it, but I grew up in the height of the crack era. I often tell people even light-skinned black don't crack when you moisturize, but that was my childhood, and was watching my friends and cousins get locked up by a rapidly expanding carceral state. So there's a lot of harm that has been committed, not just through the period of chattel slavery, but with redlining. I have two grandfathers that served this country, one black and one white. You can guess which side of my family is buried at Arlington National. You can guess which side got GI Bill and housing support when they came back from that service, and which side now has a small modicum of wealth, and which side still lives, in abject poverty. So reparations is designed to level the generational wealth gap. And the Democrats, as is their custom, they have to pay lip service as though they are going to do something for the oppressed and marginalized communities that they pretend to serve, but they will never, ever actually deliver for those communities, right? So Newsom has to perform, and then he creates studies. California, the Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, CJEC, is the leading kind of reparations organization. And they've been explicit about the fact that Gavin Newsom is just doing a soft shoe dance, endorsing additional studies. There are no studies to do. There's actual legislation designed to just simply create a database of all of the descendants of the enslaved. And this is something that we know is constitutional. We know we can afford it. We know that we can pay it out. It's not race-based, it's lineage-based. And there are no more studies that need to be done. The studies have all been done, but they're just going to keep sending you chasing your tails in circles, because they have no plans at any point in time to deliver on a debt that is due. And what I said in that video is true. I would not have taken Jill's invitation to run as VP seriously if the Green Party was on the wrong side of reparations, because I know where the Democrats stand on reparations. And I'll just go one step further. This is the only platform where you will find both reparations and land back, because the genocide of the indigenous population is that original sin upon which all American wealth is founded. And just to the right-wing panic attack, no one is suggesting that you pay $14 trillion out of California's budget. $14 trillion was the global number. There are many carefully executed plans for how you would pay that off. And the people that are supposed to be doing the paying are the corporations that still are holding on to wealth that they accumulated directly through enslavement. And I'll tether this point to Tom Steyer, who in that same Black California gubernatorial debate, funny how they didn't make a meme out of Tom Steyer saying that he was in favor of reparations, but Tom Steyer ain't in favor of reparations. So maybe it's all for the best, because the reality is that Democrat establishment is never going to pay it out. They're just going to pretend like they are. They have no plans of making our communities whole. I'm someone who has stood on reparations since I was, a young radical. I read Malcolm's autobiography. Malcolm's over my shoulder at all times. When I was 15, I converted to Islam before the week was out, and I began this effort to accumulate all of this knowledge and practical knowledge about the Black liberation tradition. We have models for dispensing reparations that are affordable, that are equitable, that are just, and this is a debt that is due. And I'm not afraid to say it, standing 10 toes down.
Yeah, I mean, it's a point that's so obvious and it's so frustrating that it doesn't get through to people that this is not race-based, it's lineage-based. It's not Black people getting money. It's people who have a line back to slavery being compensated for the generational wealth that was denied them. My mother's parents were immigrants from Malta. My grandfather came, he rented a space to open a tailor shop in New York City, worked his ass off, didn't have much money, but what money he made, he passed down to my mother. And then that's going to get passed down to me. You have massive swaths of people who were denied that because it was stolen from them. And it's just very frustrating that that doesn't seem to land. So I'll just read a brief paragraph from this article here. It says Black legislators have submitted many bills to implement pieces of the 2023 report. So that was the 2023 report that came out of Newsom's task force that he assembled in 2020. None has broached cash reparations, and he has been very selective about which bills he accepts. Last year, this is according to the article, he vetoed a bill that would have allowed descendants of slaves to seek redress for Black-owned land seized by public agencies. That is not about your skin color. About there was a wrong committed against you. There's a price for that. There's a debt that's owed attached to that. And it's not any more complicated than that, really.
We've done reparations for Holocaust survivors. We've done reparations for Japanese internment camps. They don't want reparations for Black people because they're not sorry. They want to keep doing it. And just to be clear, it's not just enslavement, but it's also that differential access. The boomer generation established their wealth largely on GI Bill and housing accessibility that was explicitly and legally excluded from black folks. My grandfather who served could not access those benefits. My black grandfather, Rudolph Ware Sr., but my white grandfather, Robert Traynor, could. And right now, today, in Atlanta, the average net worth of a black family is $8, and the average net worth of a white family is $250,000. And it's the same in Boston, it's the same in California, and we can level that wealth gap now without it coming out of the pockets or the paychecks of any current taxpayers. That's not how you pay for these reparations. So they are playing in our face. And I just wanted to say this. This is a pattern, not just with respect to reparations, but with all of our core concerns, right? Newsom ran on universal single payer healthcare in 2022. And then as soon as he was in office, suddenly they can't get the votes and they stop it from being brought to a floor vote. CalCare was just killed by a Democrat majority, super majority. 75% of the state legislature are Democrats, and they would not deliver on universal single payer healthcare despite the fact that 81% of Californians want it. And the reason is simple and straightforward. They have to pretend at election time that they are going to stand with the people. And then as soon as you give them power again, they are going to stand with their donors. They're going to stand with the corporations. They have no intention of serving you. If you listen for a second to Tom Steyer or Javier Becerra or Karen Porter, whatever her name is, that's telling you that they're going to give you universal single payer healthcare or reparations or any of the other things that your community holds dear, there's a bridge in San Francisco that I'd very much like to sell you, because there's a sucker born every minute. And suckers keep voting for the Democrats, even though they keep pulling the football from in front of Charlie Brown on all of our core issues, whether it's reparations or universal health care or protection of immigrant communities, protection of LGBTQ plus communities, right? They do the same thing with all of us because they're not here for us, they're here for their donors.
So what people say all the time about reparations, even people who support reparations, and I hope it's clear to you by now where I stand on reparations, is that the issue is simply too divisive. They say it draws a line through the working class. It makes some workers resentful of others. And as much as I hate to admit it, I mean, I'm just putting on my objectivity hat here. It does seem like that is objectively true, and that it just seems to be a non-starter, and that the barrier to even getting this conversation past the phase where most people melt down at the mention of the word reparations is to really undergo a revolution of values where we're not all in this zero-sum gauntlet where the widespread perception is that one person's advantage must come at the expense of someone else. This is where you get the retort, well, I don't owe anybody anything, right? And it's not about you owing somebody something. It is about a societal righting of a wrong. And I think that until we sort of transcend that kind of zero-sum dynamic and that gauntlet that sort of capitalism traps us in, it's very hard to get a conversation going about reparations because the dynamic in the society is one of competition, where people just can't stand the idea of somebody getting something because that inevitably means they're losing something. And so as an outspoken advocate for reparations, how do you respond to that? How do you advocate for this issue? And how do you respond to people saying, well, why don't I get it? Or why do I have to pay for it? I don't owe someone anything. I didn't benefit from slavery. Like you, I'm sure, are familiar with all of those retorts. How do you respond to those?
The work of leadership is to lead. It's to provide political education. It's to provide moral clarity. It's to guide people from the darkness of the ignorance in which they have been embedded through generations of white supremacist, capitalist, imperialist programming, till that they can see what actual public service looks like. So none of the reparation schemes involve any of those current taxpayers paying so much as a penny. So why are you invested in fighting against other people getting restorative justice when it in point of fact harms you in no way? This is just divide and conquer culture war tactics. And it is absolutely critical that we use our public positions in order to educate folks on these basic facts, right? A similar issue comes up around police abolition, right? I'm an abolitionist. I believe in decarceration, and people think, oh my God, the society is just going to go crazy if there's no police. What will ever happen? It's like, no, I'm actually deeply invested in public safety. I grew up in Washington, D.C. when it was the murder capital of the United States, 600 plus murders in a city of 600,000 people. The goal is community-based public safety. It's investment in housing, healthcare, and education. The point is that the people need to be deprogrammed from this zero-sum model that you discussed, and then you need to give them clear policy options that allow our society to be made whole. Because in point of fact, we all benefit when the African American community actually has spending power and dignity, when this state isn't a state that grinds Chicano communities down to dust. We all actually benefit when people are treated with basic dignity, basic equity, and get equal access to opportunity. That's the California that we want to build. And just to be clear, you're not going to unplug, the Charlie Kirkers from their, racist IV any more than you're gonna, unplug the libs from their Rachel Maddow MSNBC IV drip, right? That doesn't happen instantaneously. The way that this actually works is that you work in conjunction with the groups that are already doing this emancipatory work on the ground. You empower groups like CJEC. You empower groups like NorCal Resist that are already doing rapid response and ICE Watch, because I actually don't believe that elected officials will solve the problems by themselves. I'm a partisan of the Panthers' political philosophy, which is mutual aid plus direct action plus electoral power in that order of significance. I know that just by providing some moral leadership and political leadership and channeling resources to the folks that are doing the community organizing work on the ground in favor of reparations, in favor of public safety models that aren't driven by policing, that I know that we as a whole will grow, will get closer to the fulfillment of a society that works for ordinary working class people and is capable of providing restorative justice, not just for African Americans that are the descendants of the enslaved, but also for Africans who face, racism, also for indigenous populations who have had their land stolen from them, missing and murdered indigenous women. The statistics for it are mind-boggling. So we need to build a society where we provide basic dignity, justice, and equity for everybody. That's the kind of society that I'm going to fight for. I'm going to lead. I'm going to teach. And yeah, we'll have to push back on some racist bullshit in the process, and that's okay.
So just out of curiosity, you said that it won't cost people something. So what is the mechanism by which cash payments would be distributed? Now, I know you're running for governor, so there's might be a distinction between state and federal money or whatever, but how would that work? So
the most careful plans, and I strongly recommend a great book by UMass Amherst historian Sandy Garrity, or Darity is his last name. I'm blanking on it now. The most effective immediate solutions are federal solutions, but there are a great deal of state-based solutions that can provide immediate remedy. They won't get you towards full reparations or restorative justice, but they can accomplish important interim goals on the way towards full reparations. So CJEC, the group that I mentioned just a moment ago, Coalition for a Just and Equitable California, what they're arguing for right now is something that's simple and straightforward. We don't actually even have statistical mechanisms for keeping track of those that are lineage, their lineage-based connection takes them back to slavery. We only have race-based categories. So just by simply keeping track of who in California is descendants of the enslaved, on my father's side, we go back to Ware County, Georgia, where 1,300 enslaved human beings were owned by 3 white families, a man, his son, and his nephew, right? And by establishing who has a legitimate claim back to those lineage-based reparations, then you create essentially the equivalent of a Freedmen's Bureau inside the state of California. And that allows you to then make claims for access to certain things. One of the short-term claims that they're asking for is a creation of universal basic income, especially for the elderly in that community, because the conjunction of age and disability and those systemic inequalities that are compounded across generations puts especially elder Black folks that are descended from slave families in marginal circumstances and precarity. None of those UBIs require any additional tax burden upon the citizens of California. It just requires a reallocation of resources. And the short version is the same as how we pay for a bunch of other things. We stop subsidizing billionaires so that Tesla pays a 0.75% effective tax rate. And instead, we actually distribute our resources to fulfill the needs of the people for things like education and healthcare and housing, and especially UBI for our most impoverished and disadvantaged folks.
All right. Before you go, why don't you tell people where they can find out more about your campaign and follow your work?
You can follow me on all social media platforms. It's just at Butch Ware. You can go to butchwareforgov.com. That's the number 4. It's butchwareforgov.com or .org or .gov. We bought all of the domain names so that you can find me anywhere. And I think that the appeal that I would just make to people in this moment is educate yourself on the platform that we're running on, and do not be dissuaded by the propaganda. The efforts to knock me off the ballot are directly related to the fear that the Democrat establishment has in this moment. We have a coalition that includes lots of independent and centrist and even right-wing voters, and because we are bringing a populist agenda similar to the one that Bernie, utilized, except without the implicit Zionism and imperialism embedded in it. So this is a movement that is growing. I've raised more, our campaign has raised more from 3 times as much as Tom Steyer has raised from everyone that's not named Tom Steyer. So the media will give you the impression that we're on the outside looking in. We have thousands of volunteers up and down the state. We've got a robust fundraising organization. We are building power at the street level. Get involved, volunteer, register, donate, join the fight.
All righty. Butch Ware, great pleasure to meet you. Thank you so much for joining, and best of luck. I would love to have you on again soon sometime.
Yeah. And hopefully I have my office keys with me, so we get that extra 15 minutes back at the top of the hour. No Apologies again, my brother. And definitely look forward to talking to you again real soon.
All right. Thank you so much. Great to meet you. Bye-bye. Oops, sorry. That was Butch Ware, everybody. Round of applause for Butch in the chat. That was a great conversation. Really nice guy, really cool guy. Glad to be in dialogue with Butch Ware. I see, yeah, he is a rap artist. Somebody was saying he's a rap man as opposed to Cornell, the jazz man. It's funny. Should have asked him about that. That would have been a good question to raise. But yeah, that was a great talk. Glad we could put that together. And we're going to move right on along here. I'm going to take a couple of chats here just because they are getting a little backlogged over here. Abiding says, waiting in my bunker for Samson option to pop off. It hasn't been a total waste. Finished 3 chapters along with co-author Kitty Kelly on Unabridged Corn Pop Chronicles. Haven't seen one of your corn pop jokes in a while. Abiding, thanks for that. I'm whistling that everything's a scam, everything's a lie, everything's hypocrisy, and so you don't comply. See what I did there? I see. You're a clever guy. Bronx Comrade, Keaton, you're doing a great job keeping DD going. Not easy. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. One more week till Emperor Dobula returns. Vienticus Prime. No, I was passively aggressively reminding you. See, I know. Okay. All right. There you go. I knew. John Olmsted. Sorry, I didn't mean to sound ungrateful. You're doing great. No, not ungrateful at all. No, I didn't take it that way. No, I've been eyeing that story, and I've been wanting to do it, but I feel like there's just not enough time for me to do a thorough enough job on that and get to 5 other segments a day. When I only got 2 or 3 segments to do, it's easy to do a deep dive like that. When I got 7 to plan, it's much, much harder. But thank you. No offense taken, my friend. Not at all. Thank you very much. All right, everybody, we are going to move right on along. Got plenty of super chats and Rumble rants we will get to as the show progresses. Thank you so much for those. Those are super helpful. But I don't want to keep my next guest waiting because our next guest has a show of his own to get to this afternoon. He is the host of The Homeless Left, whose streams we raid from time to time. Hope that's not too much of a nuisance to you. Matt Weinglass joins the show for the first time. Matt, great to see you again, man.
Awesome. Thank you for having me here, Keaton. And yes, we love the Rumble raids. Of course, your audience, we love them. They're always talking you guys up. And yeah, I feel like we're in a similar community, and we definitely, we're inspired by what you guys have been able to do on this platform. And yeah, the more the merrier. And again, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, man. It is great to see you. So you guys are on Rumble and YouTube. Want to tell us a little bit about your channel, your operation over there for those who haven't seen it before?
Yeah, so the Homeless Left, we started right up on Rumble, right during the kind of the ending stages of the lockdown. It just seemed like the place where we could talk about those type of things, and YouTube was knocking people off left and right. So we were just a little too a little bit like let's hold off on the YouTube thing, because we didn't want to see what happened. We saw a lot of other people getting thrown off there, and they're like, well, let's just give it a shot. And literally as soon as we started the channel on YouTube, we were within a few months, they were like, nope, this video's gone. This video's gone. We're getting letters from Google. We're getting these emails. They're saying, we're guilty of medical misinformation, all this stuff. And so before you know it, channel's gone. We were terminated. And this is for having these type of conversations. And we're challenging these things, right? We're challenging pharma. We're challenging the war machine. You couldn't say anything about the, no election discussion of 2020. You can't talk about Ukraine war. And then of course, we have October 7th, and everything after that was just totally insane. So what we did is we just restructured. We went back. We did a new title. We just kind of came up with a new name, even though they said we weren't allowed on there. We just started it again. We call it THL Presents. And for some reason, this channel seems to be working out for us. So we just gave it a second try, and here we are. So we're fresh on YouTube again. We're having some great engagement. Haven't gotten that letter yet from Google, but I will say it does feel like some shadow banning going on, but we just keep fighting this no matter what. And if they take another channel down, so be it. We'll just think of another name, because we never run out of names.
That's true. Well, it's good to know that they're leaving you alone for the time being. That's all we can hope for. It's a very precarious situation, but Rumble is great for that reason. And so glad to see you guys doing well, and you do consistent streams, and it's a great show. And so glad we could finally meet up over on this side. I've been a guest on your show a number of times, and so it's great to see you over here. Now, you got a stream coming up later today, and this is an opportunity for me to cover a topic that I don't get to cover that much. And I'm talking, of course, about aliens. Aliens. We get to talk about aliens. Now, you're a married guy, right? We're Facebook friends. I don't check Facebook very often, but you're a married guy, right?
Yes.
Are you fairly newly married?
Yeah, about a year and a half.
Year and a half. So no kids yet, right?
Oh, what's that?
No kids yet?
Not yet.
Okay, but not yet, meaning you do probably plan on having kids at some point, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so as a father of 3, let me give you some advice here. Get all your alien inquiries in now, because when you become a father, you're not going to have time to follow this shit anymore. These are going to be the stories that you're like, oh, yeah, something's going on there, but I got a million other things I got to cover to get the show together. Now, while you have time, now is the time to dive into this. And that's why I want to dive into this with you, because it's on your thumbnail this afternoon. So you're going to talk a little bit about this. All right. So here's Kash Patel promising release of the UFO files on the Lean Back show with Sean Hannity. I feel like we've never seen Sean Hannity lean back before. We've always seen him on Fox News like this. Now we get to see him like this. This is TV mode. This is podcast mode here. So here's Sean Hannity leaning back in his chair, talking about aliens with Kash Patel.
Would be life on other planets that may be visited here that would not at all shock or surprise me. Have you ever looked into it?
We're looking at it. Here's the thing. Again,
okay, I want all the details.
Here's the thing. Every other president before President Trump could have said, hey, let's look at that and get the American people the information. What did he do? He stood up an interagency process with Department of War leading that effort to get out the documentation related to everything that you're talking about, not just from the FBI, from the IC and everywhere else. And so what do? We already delivered our first tranche of information to that committee, and they're going to be publicly releasing this information very soon. We are all for it. There's nothing in this subject that we're talking about that we don't want released. Our job at the FBI is to work with the White House, the DOW, give them the information, and then they're going to put that out in a methodical process. And you're going to start seeing those releases literally happening in the very near future. We just met on it.
Okay, in the very near future. Now, the plot thickens here. Power to the People tweets out, according to Pastor Perry Stone, a large number of pastors were invited to a secret meeting with the U.S. government to let them know full disclosure is coming. There's going to be a release concerning aliens and UFOs, and you need to prepare your people. Is the moment of disclosure finally happening, or is this a big distraction from a historically unpopular government? So here is Perry Stone.
Can you give me a call? I have some information that has come to my attention. Of course, when a friend of yours does that you know quite well, you have no idea what information they're talking about. And I'm not going to go into great detail, but there were a large number of pastors that had been invited to go to a certain state to hear some men in the United States government and others share with them a concern that they had. And this particular man, and I'll not name him, and then we may end up doing some teachings with him or having an event at his church. He has a great church. But he said, Perry, what they're about to release, from what we're hearing, there's going to be a release concerning aliens and concerning unidentified flying object spacecraft, that some of the people who were in the meeting were telling us as pastors, you need to prepare your people and you need to get ready to answer them for what you're about to hear being released. And some of it has to do with crafts that have been discovered that are not allegedly a part of our planet, and the materials they're made of are not a part of our planet.
We said, what if the aliens come and insist that Earth was promised to them 3,000 years ago? What then? What then? This creates a crisis of faith in the community.
Very strange reptilian-looking creatures and other things that almost sound like something out of a sci-fi movie or an Orson Welles book.
They come with small hats and insist this planet belongs to them and not us, and that we have to get on the ship and leave lest we be punished. Well, here's Donald Trump saying, yeah, people are really interested in this. People are really looking forward to this.
President, I have 2 questions for you. First, on the topic of space, do you have an update on the UFO files and when we're going to be seeing those?
Well, I think we're going to be releasing as much as we can in the near future. For some reason, and I guess it's just a reason that's been in the minds of people for a long time, and that is they want to find out about the UFOs and anything having to do with UFO or related material, and we're going to be releasing a lot of things that we have, and I think some of it's going to be very interesting to people. I've interviewed people, my first term primarily, but I interviewed some pilots, very solid people, and they said they saw things that you wouldn't believe. So you're going to be reading about it, yes.
You're going to be reading about it. Let's read a little bit about it from the Daily Mail. Religious leaders told prepare now for UFO disclosure to unleash Bible-changing revelations. Bible-changing revelations. Influential pastors are claiming that they have been told to prepare their followers for shocking revelations about UFOs, which may upend belief in the Bible. Perry Stone, a well-known evangelist, author, and Bible teacher from Tennessee, warned that fellow pastors were recently invited to a secret meeting with U.S. intelligence officials to prepare for the release of secret files on extraterrestrials. All right, so as the dink on the panel, and I don't mean that as a pejorative, they say that dual income, no kids. That's what parents who have time on their hands to learn about things. I want you to lay the dink wisdom on me now. You're calling this a psyop as part of your thumbnail. What's going on with these aliens and these pastors?
Well, first of all, I'll clarify. Doing this type of work, Keaton, we don't really have any spare time, but we do take interest in certain topics. This one we have been we certainly
I'm trolling. I'm bitter about all the time you have that I don't.
The idea is we have time. It's a thought that we have time.
In theory.
We're always we know how this is. We have to keep going through the updates constantly every day. And you know what? I'll say this. I've noticed that things have gotten so much quicker. The speed of
yeah.
information
Oh,
on
yeah.
our feeds. As I feel like it's tripled since I started doing this, Keaton. Now, do you feel the same way? Like
100%. I always say
Yeah.
I know why the media hates Trump now, because he's too much work.
Yeah.
You know,
way
he
too
makes you
much.
work too hard. You
Yeah.
know? Yeah. There's too
So,
many
yeah,
stories.
we don't have time on our hands, but
Yeah.
we do look at this topic, and this is so. I'll start with this. I'll say this is what we call a slow roll. So it's not that the entire thing is contrived and pulled out of thin air. It's that it's a narrative control mechanism, and we can see this with the other slow rolls, with everything else that Trump has promised us. The administration is looking into so many things. How many things were going to be game changers, right? The 9/11 release, the Epstein files. I mean, we might have, you could maybe make a case that when the 3 million files dropped, that was kind of a mild game changer, but not really. So when they tell you this big moment's happening, get ready, that moment will never come. What they're doing is they're controlling the narrative with a slow roll into the public consciousness. And that's what the alien story's been about this whole way. So these little snippets of, I've talked to people and they've told me they've seen some wild things. That's such an outdated idea. Of course we've seen wild things. We've seen wild things our entire lives. So that's not new information. The technology we're talking about, that's the part I think the mechanism of controlling that is what we're not going to ever really get our hands on. That technology is been around for our entire lifetimes. And so when we say, oh, we're tapping in to alien technology, we already have the capability of replicating it. We've been replicating it. So a lot of the stuff we're seeing is our own experimentation of technology we've been replicating. So anyways, the church part is the interesting part here. So you have to control the narrative, right? With the biblical element. So they say it's a game changer for the Bible. It's not really a game changer. It's just another one of those management controls, narrative controls, where they're going to spin. And we've seen this before in different versions of the Bible. You just spin different languages when you interpret what God meant as far as where our origins come from. So you just keep control of that. And it's not a coincidence that it's specifically these evangelicals that are getting into this meeting to be the ones to talk to their people so they can control this as it goes. But the whole thing is really one big distraction, because now we're thinking, oh, Trump is about to do something big and bold. I don't even think he's on board with this. He's been kind of mocking this thing. He went to TPUSA a few weeks ago and kind of mocked the crowd. Like, you guys would be kind of into this stuff, I think. I don't know. You guys seem like you'd be that kind of out there. So he's just kind of going through the motions himself. But yeah, it's interesting to watch this unfold. But I do think it's all about narrative control and the slow roll, which the public conscious will be controlled by that on the long term.
Yeah, so if we read just a little more here, influential pastors claiming they've been told, oh, sorry, that's got that one already. Officials in this secret meeting allegedly said the information on its way may cause some Christians to question how the universe was created and even lose faith in religion. Stone said you're going to have people who are going to say if there are galaxies and there are allegedly other creations in the galaxies, then the whole creation story is a myth, and you're going to have people that's going to apostatize and turn from the Christian faith because they have no answer for what they are about to hear. This reported meeting involved approximately 6 Christian leaders, including Bishop Alan DiDio of the Revival Nation Church, who confirmed that he was part of the extraordinary gathering. DiDio said it seemed like a half a dozen people were gathered in an Airbnb in the mountains of Tennessee discussing an investigation that's going on in the United States government against crimes they have committed in the process of retrieving and reverse engineering technology from non-human intelligence. That's kind of what you were talking about, right? Yeah. So what is the point then of this exercise? You say it's a distraction. Is it a way to steal headlines going into the midterms to create a sort of mass consciousness event that kind of takes things off of just what a disaster the administration has been? Because, of course, that comes at risk of really dropping a big turd in the punch bowl of their base, who are these diehard like evangelical Christians. Is that what this is?
Yeah, it's kind of a little of all of it. I mean, that's what you've seen, just like all these other false flag operations, like we had the recent White House shooting. It's right. About getting that whatever's left of that base, that 100%. And we saw that CNN poll a few weeks back where like 100% of MAGAs believe in Trump. Well, yeah, if you still call yourself a MAGA, then you're checking the box for Trump. This is the base that's still playing that 60, 70, 80 chess game, and this is going to, solidify that idea that's what he's doing. But he's not. He's not playing any chess here, obviously. But there is some validity into the technology part of this, and we've looked at stuff like Project Bluebeam, and we've seen how the technology we have with AI can create these big, massive, events that will be biblical in nature, using this total advanced technology that we've managed to speed up over our, these last, I would say, 20, 30 years. And using areas like the part of Antarctica we're not allowed to go to, and we haven't been able to since the 40s. So there's a lot of truth in that as far as what we've been able to create and how we're going to use the religions, use the churches to control the people as this technology becomes more and more obvious and available. As far as like relationships with other intergalactic species, that's something that's not necessarily off the table. We have to be open to that, but we're not going to be getting an honest discussion about that at any time soon. All of this it's a theater piece, again, designed to keep Trump people on board with the 60, 70, 80 chess, and then the consciousness of the public will slowly be willing to talk about this a little bit more, very, very gradually. And I'll just give an example. If you remember back with Dennis Kucinich, when it first came out, when he was running for the Democratic Party, and it came out that he at one point seen a UFO, that was the worst thing ever that you could have said as a candidate for president at the time. So we can already see that over those several years, if you had that said now, it's not a big deal. So I think that if we just look at those little incremental steps of what we're allowed to talk about, that's changing. But again, for right now, this is about distraction. This is about controlling that base. That's why these meetings are happening, and that's why these pastors are coming out. And they're all doing these videos. This wasn't the only one. This wasn't the only one, Keaton. This guy, there was a whole bunch of them. They're doing their own little videos, talking all serious and intense. Like, we got to do something about this. We were in this room. So it's part of the theater of this piece.
Yeah, no, I can't wait to hear that James Comey fucked an alien, 10 years ago. That'll be the spin out of this white. I can't believe he's a sick guy. He's a horrible guy. We got to indict him for raping an alien. It's disgusting what he did. He's a sick, horrible people. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, that was just a story that I don't get to touch upon much. But yeah, I saw all these different videos populating my feed of all these pastors. And so thank you for that. We'll take a couple of chats here. It's illegal to be outside, but we don't have a legal right to be inside. That's a simple way to explain the logical contradiction of this third world country. Thank you, Nocturnal Human. Eric Rousseau says, so it's no longer bread and circus, it's eat shit and circus. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Bread and circus without the bread.
We don't get the bread. Nope.
No, just a horror show with no bread. Vienticus says, I find it interesting when people think Team Left or Team Right has ever had the people's interest at heart. The origin comes from the French Assembly, where one wanted to change and one didn't. Neither of them gave a fuck about the people. They just pretended to. Thank you for that, my friend. And Terabang, thanks for the $5, says, I want to send Dr. Ware a none of the above button too. F the D's and the R's. Yeah, let me Google that. I will say I'm resolved to catch up on my emails this week. I think I have a good excuse, which is that I've been doing the show myself, so I'm a little behind on the emails. But I will get to them this week as we come down the home stretch. Keaton, if you're not sure what skills to point your kids toward, I might have a certain book for you. Wonder when I'll send it. LOL, I'm an asshole. I know. Oh, you're going to send me the book too? I thought you were just going to, I just thought you wanted to advertise a book. Do I get a free book? You should lead with that, Vienticus. Don't you know you're dealing with a Jewish operation here? Just say, hey, I'll send you the book for free. That it would have had me at hello. Kind of burying the lead there, my friend. Yeah, all right. Yeah, if you send me a book, then yeah, let's do it. Charles, a rising water level lifts all boats. A rising tide is a destructive tsunami. Also, since we cannot afford a boat, we drowned. But that's by design, in my opinion. Yep. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate that. Benjamin Stieber says, if we start with UBI, it would be the best path to reparations. Give everyone a cut before we have to pay off the debts. Thank you for that, my friend. All right, we will move right on along here. We are here with Matt Weinglass from the Homeless Left. Some Iran news to get to. This was something. that you may have missed. Operation Epic Fury is over. We are done with that. We are now on to Project Freedom, said Marco Rubio 2 days ago, Cinco de Mayo.
I think you're linking it. The operation is over. Epic Fury, as the president notified Congress, we're done with that stage of it. Okay, we're now on to this project of freedom. As far as a negotiation is concerned, I think the president's been clear that part of the negotiation process has to be not just the enrichment, but what happens to this material that's buried deep somewhere that they still have access to if they ever wanted to dig it out. That has to be addressed, and that's being addressed in the negotiation. I'm not going to go further on what progress has been made on that topic because I don't want to endanger the negotiations, but suffice it to say that the president and this entire team is aware of the centrality of that question, and that will have to be addressed one way or the other.
Okay, so let's hear about Project Freedom. This is straight from the Department of War, okay? No radical left propaganda here. Project Freedom aims to get thousands of commercial ships safely through the Strait of Hormuz. Project Freedom is meant to reopen the strait to commercial vessels, said Secretary of War Pete Hegseth during a briefing today at the Pentagon. It is also independent of Operation Epic Fury, which for now is in a ceasefire. President Trump has directed U.S. Central Command to restart the free flow of commerce through the Strait of Hormuz under the umbrella of Project Freedom, Hegseth said. Project Freedom is defensive in nature, focused in scope, temporary in duration, and with one mission, protecting innocent commercial shipping from Iranian aggression. So here is Jesse Waters really talking up Project Freedom, really going full America, fuck yeah here.
The strait while we maintain the blockade, that's going to really bring their negotiating team to its knees. It also unlocks all of this pent-up cargo and energy out of there. And we did it without boots on the ground. And we did it without any Asian or European allies, so you're welcome.
That's amazing.
We basically sailed multiple guided missile destroyers straight through the gap. We demined this little safe passage along the coast of Oman. And this is not like a one-to-one escort situation. We've created an entire defensive umbrella around the Gulf with anti-missile defense systems, helicopters, fighter jets, drones with about 15,000 service members, and we've already got 2 U.S. flagged vessels out of there safely. This is a defensive operation. We don't fire until fired upon. They fired first. They broke the ceasefire, and it didn't go very well for them. 6 of their fast boats from the Mosquito fleet wasted by Apaches and Seacraft helicopters, and then also a bunch of missiles and drones they shot out, all of them intercepted.
All right, this is like the South Park episode, and it's gone, right? Donald Trump, based on the request of Pakistan and other countries, the tremendous military success that we have had during the campaign against the country of Iran, and additionally, the fact that great progress has been made toward a complete and final agreement with representatives of Iran, we have mutually agreed that while the blockade will remain in full force and effect, Project Freedom, the movement of ships through the Strait of Hormuz, will be paused for a short period of time to see whether or not the agreement can be finalized and signed. President Donald J. Trump. So here's Jesse Waters back on the air reporting this news. Let's see how does he spin this? No. How can you spin this? How can you polish this turd? Well, where there's a will, there's a way. And Fox News is highly rated for a reason. So let's hear it.
The president says, based on the request of Pakistan and other countries, we have mutually agreed that while the blockade will remain in full force and effect, Project Freedom will be paused for a short period of time to see whether or not the agreement can be finalized and signed. We suspect the president is letting the Iranians save face.
Ha!
The enemy just yesterday said they controlled the strait.
Oh my God. We didn't want to we were owning them too hard. We wanted to let them save face. Let's hear that one more time.
Face. The enemy finalized and signed. We suspect the president is letting the Iranians save face. The enemy.
Let's just pause here for a second. You know, I told you last segment, you know, Trump makes the news business harder, but he makes the Daily Show writers' lives easier. Like, I feel like I'm writing a Daily Show segment when I cover this story. Like, there's no effort needed. Like, it's just such a fucking clown show. How do you go on the air one night and talk about how we're blowing them out of the water, we're swatting them out of the water, and then you go, so we called it off because we didn't want to embarrass him.
Yeah. No. All you need is the Jon Stewart face stare.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's the bit. You play the clip, you play the next clip, and you stare in the camera. That's the bit. It writes itself. But I do think Jesse Waters has the toughest job in news because he has to show up and be like, "Are you freaking kidding me? I just said the thing. Now you want me to say this thing." So you gotta be like, dude. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of talent. And like you said, Fox News has the audience, still has the audience for this reason, that they can go one thing, then the next thing, and back and forth. And the audience is still eating it up. They're going, oh yeah, save face. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah. I mean, it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, you just need the confidence of a popped collared frat boy, you know, and a total lack of conscience. And I guess that's the formula for success on the Jesse Waters show, but it's unbelievable. All right, so here you go. So he says, okay, so we called it off because we wanted to give the Iranians an opportunity to save face. In other words, we wanted to give the Iranians a chance to declare victory, even though they didn't actually win, so that we can call things off. Talk about projection, right? Like talk about saying about your adversary what's true of yourself. Like, it's just incredible. And to your point, though, yeah, man, there's an audience for this that watches it. Oh, yeah, 5D chess. Well, we wanted to give them an off-ramp. Yeah. No, we wanted to take our boot a little off their neck so that they might take the off-ramp. Yeah, that's what's happening here.
We suspect the president is letting the Iranians save face. The enemy just yesterday said they controlled the strait. That was obviously a lie. And watching the Americans escort ship after ship.
Then why aren't the ships? Then why aren't the ships going through? They don't control the ship. They don't control the strait. Why is my gas $4.50 a gallon then? If they don't control the strait, like how? Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't mean to be this guy, but like, how fucking stupid do you have to be to watch this?
Yeah.
Like, how stupid do you have to be?
Well, the thing is, Keaton, is that this Fox News needs to exist for the reason that everybody watching CNN and MSNBC now or later, wherever the hell they call themselves now, they have to pretend to be the ones going against this when they're all playing the game of protecting the interest of U.S. and Israel and the Greater Israel Project. So they pretend. So they all play their roles. So you have to have this in order to be like, oh, I'm going to turn on CNN and get the real story. So that's the theater piece of it. Like, oh, I'm going to get they're actually talking about those military bases being hit, and Fox isn't. So we're going at each other. No, you're all protecting the same thing, that we have to stop Iran. Trump's just doing it in a bad way. That's CNN's take. But so that's the difference. So we got to remember why these roles need to be played, so they all can play their function and do their part in keeping us all thinking that there's actual journalism going on any of these networks.
Exactly. Yeah. As Russ says, different traps for different mice, right?
Yeah. Gulf, and them not being able to do anything about that was going to be humiliating. Not only were they going to lose whatever military prestige they had left in the region.
So I'm sorry, like, I don't mean to drag this out, but it's just like, it's too mind-boggling not to pause it.
Yeah.
We thought that getting the oil through the strait would be humiliating to Iran. And so that's why we called off the super successful alpha male Project Freedom mission. Okay, so now we're paying. So now I guess we're all paying. I mean, you're out there in California. What's the gas out there now?
Oh God, no, we're well over $5 here.
Okay, so you're well over $5 so that we don't humiliate Iran. That's it. We could get that. We could get those prices down, but the evil regime that chants death to America, we don't want to embarrass them. Right. So we have to be polite about this, right? So you keep paying. Trust the plan.
Going to be able to fight for their position after they lost their last bargaining chip. The commander-in-chief must believe that the Iranians are serious about surrendering if he's going to pause Project Freedom for the sake of a deal. Because you could also continue Project Freedom during the negotiations you do want to get these foreign ships moving.
He's like,
the president.
No, devil's advocate. Devil's advocate, if this is working as well as we say it is, we could just keep doing it in order to increase our leverage, right? Like, even he can't go full bore. Even he has to say, now, listen, now, just hear me out. Let's just hear the other side of this. There are some who might say that if this was going as well as I said it was 2 days ago, we would just keep doing it.
There's some that might say, like me yesterday.
Right.
So
Like me. Yeah.
he's referencing himself from the previous one, and like, oh, so we can look at it either way. Whatever I got to tell you is the thing we can look at. So there you are.
Some might say if this was going so well, we should have kept doing it.
Must know what he's doing.
Unbelievable, man.
And we're about to find out how insane in the brain the regime really is.
Yeah, wow. Trump's abrupt U-turn. Now, here's the real story, according to NBC at least. Trump's abrupt U-turn on a plan to reopen the Strait of Hormuz came after backlash from allies. President Donald Trump's abrupt reversal on his plan to help ships go through the Strait of Hormuz came after a key Gulf ally suspended the U.S. military's ability to use its bases and airspace to carry out the operation, according to 2 U.S. officials. Oh, so you mean we couldn't keep doing it? Because our allies said, hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. This is bad news. Okay. Jesse Waters, I guess, didn't cover that angle of it. I guess not. Trump surprised Gulf allies by announcing Project Freedom on social media Sunday afternoon, the officials said, angering leadership in Saudi Arabia. In response, the kingdom informed the U.S. it would not allow the U.S. military to fly aircraft from Prince Sultan Air Base southeast of Riyadh or fly through Saudi airspace to support the effort, the officials said. A call between Trump and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman did not resolve the issue, the 2 U.S. officials said, forcing the president to pause Project Freedom in order to restore U.S. military access to the critical airspace. Other close Gulf allies were also caught off guard. The president spoke with leaders in Qatar after the effort had already begun. The U.S. military refers to permission to use another country's territory as ABO, which stands for Access, Basing, and Overflight. Fighter jets, refueling tankers, and support aircraft all need permission to fly from key regional allies. Saudi Arabia and Jordan are critical for allowing aircraft to base there. Kuwait is critical for overflight, and Oman for both overflight and naval logistics. So, to bring things full circle, to hear from little Marco again, here he is saying what the new goal of the Iran war is.
Trump has said, and the facts clearly bear out, the United States of America holds all the cards. There is no scenario here in which if they decide to join a ladder of escalation, they wind up getting the last say. But our preference is for these straits to be opened to the way they're supposed to be opened, back to the way it was. Anyone can use it, no mines in the water, nobody paying tolls. That's what we have to get back to, and that's the goal here.
That's what we have to get back to, and that's the goal there. In other words, we have to win back the chips that we lost when we sat down at the table. And finally, here's the new justification for all of this. If Iran had a nuclear weapon and they decided to close the strait and make gas prices $9 a gallon, there'd be nothing we can do about it.
Think about it this way. If Iran had a nuclear weapon and they decided to close the straits and make our gas prices like $9 a gallon or $8 a gallon, we wouldn't be able to do anything about it because they have a nuclear weapon.
They close the strait now without a nuclear weapon. Like, what are you talking about?
And a nuclear-armed Iran could do whatever the hell they want with the straits, and there's nothing anyone would be able to do about it.
It seems like that's what they're doing now. Am I crazy? Am I wrong?
I mean, hypothetically, if we had a nuclear weapon, Keaton, they couldn't do anything about that either.
Good point.
I mean, there's all these scenarios that could be, would be, should be. We have to consider. We have to consider any nuclear weapon, other than the only one we can't talk about is Israel's nuclear weapon. That one is not a discussion. But this was, this is really why we were there in the first place, right? Because of all the things that Trump felt like that they were wanting to do, and he felt like, right, everything's feelings and. Oh, we never know. So we're right back to the nuclear weapon BS. Here we are. It's this is insane. I'll say this. The fact that Trump is allowing these back and forth happening so rapidly that and didn't consider that these things would happen, didn't consider that Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and Qatar would end so poorly. Immediately they'd say, no, you can't do that. And to have to retreat and then try a new thing and retreat and try a new thing. It really lets us see the mechanism in place here that his team sitting around plotting all this. It's not them coming up with this. I can't imagine that they're saying we're gonna do this. We're gonna bring this one to an end. We're gonna start on the Project Freedom. Then we're gonna backstep on that. It's because we're working on behest to Israel. They are in charge, and having this idea that you can get Trump to go along with it because of the notion that these things are just easy to do. I think that's why they're falling for it. They're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. This should work. And they're not actually doing the work. They're not actually doing the homework. As the Secretary of War showed us a week ago when he was being questioned, they don't actually do the work. So they're just taking the orders, and that's why they can't defend these big moves. And the fact that these moves are contradicting themselves day after day after day, making our job, it's sometimes entertaining to do, but like it is insane. And just back to Jesse Waters, the guy has the hardest job of all because he's got to keep back and forthing it every single day he comes into work. It's mind blowing, but that's why they actually haven't done the work on it. They don't actually know what's going to happen from day to day. They're just as mind blown about it as Jesse Waters and we are.
Yeah. First of all, it's a great point that we have nuclear weapons and we can't get the Strait open. So if nuclear weapons means you could do whatever you want, then why aren't they opening the Strait? Right? Because we have them and they don't. So that's a great point hidden in plain sight that I didn't even realize. So good on you for that. And the second thing is, I think you're absolutely right. I think this is all just Trump buying time. He's buying time. He wants to wiggle out. He's wanted to wiggle out of this since he did it. I don't think he ever wanted to do it. I mean, that report from the New York Times, it said Netanyahu came into the Situation Room. He said this was going to be easy. He said the Iranians are going to rise up and overthrow the government. We know Trump's CIA guy, Ratliff, said that's bullshit. Rubio said that's bullshit. Vance said that's bullshit. Trump went along with it. Why? Because he's under Israel's thumb. And so it got to a point where Trump's tweets every few hours became just not even worth covering because it just seems like he's stalling for time. He's just kind of running out the clock, hoping that he can wiggle out of this some way, because you're absolutely right. This looks like someone who's not in control of anything. They're just maneuvering until they can hopefully find some off-ramp some way. I don't know how that happens if Israel is super insistent on taking this all the way. And in our next segment, we're going to get into this possible deal that you got American Zionist pundits encouraging Israel to sabotage. So, like, how does this end without stepping on the next segment? How do we think this ends without us either breaking from the Israelis or going in full bore? It seems like we're in this stalemate where the goal is just to kind of kick the can down the road. Eventually, something's going to happen. It's going to have to break one way or another at some point, right?
I think that this is leading up to Trump being the one that gets thrown under the bus and takes the fall for everything. And the same might be said about Netanyahu in Israel. Same thing, where you keep the machine going and you blame everything on the one guy, and everybody else gets back to business as usual, which is not being so loud and obnoxious and tweeting every hour. So that was part of what needed to happen to speed things up. Remember, every single president before Trump also was coerced by Israel, by Netanyahu, to do this thing, and they didn't. For some reason, they were able to avoid it somehow. They all wanted to. They all really wanted to, but they didn't want to be that person that didn't look into it and say, wait, this is going to be a little difficult. Iran's not going to be so easy. It's not going to be a Lebanon. It's not going to be a Syria. Well, Syria is a little hard, but it's doable. It's doable over time. It's not gonna be a Libya. It's not gonna be, just rolling over Palestine. I mean, so those are much easier to do, right? This is hard. So I think he might be set up as the ultimate fall guy, so we can get back on track and everybody can go back to the idea. And MAGA's too. By the way, there you go. There's your next campaign. It's make MAGA great again, because he was the loose cannon. Make Israel great again, because Netanyahu was a loose cannon, even though the policies that will replace him are going to be even worse. They'll just be more quiet about it. And, the next guy after Netanyahu we'll talk more in Hebrew, less in English. That's what they need to do. And so it's about less tweeting, less announcing everything, and just going back to business as usual. And then we think that we got rid of the bad apple and everything's fine.
Could be good a theory as any. So we're going to roll right into the next segment, and then I'll take a chat break because I know, Matt, you got a show coming up. So I want to do this next segment so you have time to go prep for that. And everybody go check out The Homeless Left after Due Dissidence. It'll be a nice doubleheader this afternoon. I'll raid your stream if I can figure out how. It's a little hard with only one of us here. I got to work a million controls at once. But I'll give you a verbal raid now in case I can't get the buttons working in time at the end of the show. So verbal raid here for the Homeless Left show coming up. What do you start? 3 Eastern, so noon your time out there? Cool. Yeah. So awesome.
Thank you.
All right, and folks, little light in the like column here. We're at 590. Let's bump that up to 666, please. And thank you very much. 1241 in the YouTube chat, 436 over on Rumble. All right, so here we go. Trump optimistic as U.S. awaits Iran's response to peace framework. That is where we are right now. For all we know, this could be obsolete by the time we finish the segment, but that's life in 2026 in the podcast business. Yep. President Trump said Wednesday that the U.S. and Iran have had, quote, good talks over the last 24 hours and expressed confidence that a deal is possible in the coming days. The White House is waiting for Iran's response to a one-page memorandum of understanding, an MOU, to end the war and set a framework for more detailed nuclear negotiations, as Axios first reported. U.S. officials say they expect a response from Tehran in the next 24 to 48 hours. We are not far, but there is no deal yet, one U.S. official said. Other U.S. officials are more skeptical a deal will come together. The White House wants a diplomatic breakthrough by the time Trump wraps his China trip next Friday. Officials say, if no deal is in hand by then, the president could again consider ordering military action. That's kind of what's hanging over this, too. Is what kind of hand is he going to have to play when he goes to Beijing? If they don't agree, the bombing starts, and it will be, sadly, at a much higher level and intensity than it was before, Trump wrote on Truth Social on Wednesday. The one-page, 14-point MOU is being negotiated between Trump's envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and several Iranian officials, both directly and through mediators. Among other provisions, the deal would involve Iran committing to a moratorium on nuclear enrichment, the U.S. agreeing to lift its sanctions and release billions in frozen Iranian funds, which, if you remember, that was their big hissy fit over the Obama deal, that it gave the Iranians too much money. Well, looks like we're struggling to get back to that same point, right? Just trying to get our chips back here. And both sides lifting, we should call him Davey, President Davey. You remember Davey from the Sopranos? Robert Patrick, the guy who comes into the game, loses all the money, and then he gives him his kid's SUV, right, to try and pay him back. You should call him President Davey. I like that. President Davey. An Iranian foreign ministry spokesman said Wednesday that Iran is still reviewing the proposal and hasn't yet provided its response to the Pakistani mediators. U.S. officials say the back and forth with Iran is slow because every message has to travel to and from Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei, who remains in hiding for security reasons. Trump struck an optimistic tone Wednesday on the chances of a deal, even as his own public timeline for negotiations appeared to waver. Here he is, Trump to military moms. We'll see whether or not they agree.
And we'll see whether or not they are agreeing. And if they don't agree, they'll end up agreeing shortly thereafter. So that's the way it is. And I thought you might want to have a little rundown now. The fake news is all happy because they can hear what we had to say. And I have to.
Okay. So now let's go to another corner of the media space here. This is the Hugh Hewitt show. So let's see how they're taking news of this deal. It's really incredible that you have people in the media, prominent figures like Hugh Hewitt, just advocating for a foreign country to sabotage our potential peace deal. Like just outright saying, yeah, Israel should not honor this. So let's take a look. Here he is with Noah Rothman.
On subject, I don't know if you heard my monologue. I'm very exercised about this proposed one-page deal. Have you read about it? What do you think about it?
Yeah, me too. And I share your apprehension. For the very first time in this war, I am concerned that the president's going weak in the knees. A lot of people have been anticipating that he was going to wiggle out of this war at the nearest possible opportunity, and they have not yet realized. I think it's under-recognized the degree to which he has been committed to his stated objectives from the outset. But yesterday was super weird, Hugh. The entire administration was trotted out to outline, roll out in granular detail, Project Freedom, the necessity behind it, the strategic and tactical imperatives that were informing it, and the moral and ethical necessity of seeing it through. Marco Rubio, when he was on that podium, framed this operation as a humanitarian necessity. This is a criminal enterprise that's holding 23,000 mariners hostage. They need to be rescued. And we are the only Navy on the planet Earth capable of doing that. And then a bunch of hours later, the president backs off.
No, I wanted to put a question.
So then they go to a break. I mean, what world are these people living in? It's like an upside down world. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing to see this. Oh, well, we were afraid this was going to happen.
Well, this is the point of this. Hugh Hewitt, this is the company Salem Media. This is a operation that is literally a registered foreign agent for Israel. That's their job, is to represent Israel. So that's why these discussions are about Israel's interests, not the U.S. And it's baffling to me that an audience can't pick up on that, like, without seeing the paper trail, because you can see this. It's a federally registered foreign agent.
Are they part of that? Are they part of the Salem Media Project? I didn't know.
Correct.
We covered that yesterday or Tuesday, whenever it was.
Yes. So the fact that the audience thinks that they're talking on behest of America's interests, I don't know where they would get that from, because you can watch this guy for 10 minutes and figure out that this is his job. This is what they do. These are exactly the conversation you expect to have from a foreign agent media company like Salem, which is what they're doing. So that's why, of course, they're advocating for Israel's interest here and to go off on their own. Don't let Trump even talk about negotiating, even the mere mention of it. So that's what's happening here. It's crazy that anyone even called this news at all.
Yeah, and now he says it in as many words. Like, he just says it directly into the camera when they come back. Here he goes.
I'm trying it out on you before I tried it on John Podhoretz next hour. J.D. Vance told me on this show when he was a senator or running for vice president, I can't remember, that nations have their own interests and they have to follow their own interests. We don't control Israel. Israel doesn't control us. At this point, I think it's in Israel's interest to act against Iran in a way that blows up this deal.
Look at that.
There it is.
It's in Israel's interest to act against Iran in ways that blow up this deal. This is an American encouraging a foreign country to sabotage a peace deal that the American president is ostensibly, we'll see, trying to negotiate. And these people are going to tell you when you're against this war that you're anti-American. This is the most anti-American shit. What could be more anti-American than that? Than nudging a foreign power to sabotage a peace deal? Yeah, just absolutely extraordinary. But then look at how they try and justify this, right?
At this point, I think it's in Israel's interest to act against Iran in a way that blows up this deal. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I tend to agree, and I agree on the substance. I think that there's something that those who are in that realist mold that kind of get a little bit wrong about national interest is that they discount values as being interests. And that's just historically hard to support. Values are interests. Nations act on values. Armies move on stories. And values-related alliances are more valuable because they're cheaper to maintain than the sort of associations that Russia and China maintain, because their alliances are coercive. And coercion is expensive. You have to maintain this whole apparatus in order.
Wait a minute.
Whoa.
If that's true, why does like most of the shit in this room have a made in China label on it? How much shit in your house has a made in Israel label on it? Yeah. None. If you're a fan of this show, you should honor the boycott. But so bit of a trick question setting you up there. But the point is, like, you're just talking out of your ass. What the hell are you? What the hell are you even saying? Oh, alliances based in values. See, what they have to do here is they have to kind of figure out some justification for what Hugh Hewitt just said, because what he just said was Israel should sabotage the deal. So now they have to figure out a way, okay, how do we make ourselves sound less disloyal to our own country than we actually are? But that is just a moronic statement.
Well, I don't think it's that hard to make that case for Israel, because that is a value of Israel. The value of Israel is forced alliance with the U.S., forced taking our taxpayer money, forced us to do anything we want. And if we have any problem with it, they have the Samson option ready to go. And that's how they treat their friends and their greatest ally, right? So that is the value he's talking about. If you F with us, we'll F with you, and we're no longer BFFs, and you'll pay the price. So that's the value he's talking about, and that's and he's saying that supersedes anything else. And we know this. This is why we've been cooperating, going along with Israel, because we know that's in their doctrine. So it's actually not that hard to maneuver this. It actually fits very well into Israel's their entire their whole thing. That's their thing. That's literally their thing. I'll say one more thing about Hugh, about this guy, because you look back at Hewitt's resume, and he's been doing this crap since the Reagan administration. He's like this evangelical Christian representing this the voice of Israel, this personal management he did under Reagan. So this has been part of this relationship this entire way. All these years, president after president has had this type of engagement and discussion and arrangement here that I think we're discovering it now more than ever, because Trump's been so vocal about his back and forth, like we said on the last segment. And that's why they have to go on and have this discussion. And I don't think it's damage control. I think it's just pushing the thing they've been doing behind closed doors anyways. Now they're just doing it a lot more out loud. But it's been consistent the whole time.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, we're going to play the rest of this video. While this video is playing, Matt, would you mind just posting the link to your channel in the private chat here so I can put it up on the screen? Because I forgot it's a different name than it used to be. I forgot about that.
To hold it, you have to manufacture the gun that you're holding to your ally's head, which costs money, as opposed to a values-related alliance, which is far more easier to maintain and longer-lived, as NATO demonstrates, and as our budding and emerging...
As you just said, Matt, they're holding the gun to their ally's head. That's what the Samson option is. That is exactly what the Samson option is. What is that if not a gun to your ally's head?
You have to manufacture the gun that you're holding to your ally's head, which costs money, as opposed to a values-related alliance, which is far more easier to maintain and longer-lived, as NATO demonstrates, and as our budding and emerging relationship with Israel demonstrates. So, a side digression there. But I do believe that Israel has the right and the legitimate interest in seeing the Iranian regime defanged. I don't think that the Israeli government under Benjamin Netanyahu would accept something akin to whatever the terms of this memorandum that are being bandied about are. And Israel would have the latitude to act on its own accord. There's a lot of people who are afraid that Israel would drag the United States back into another conflict here in the event that we reached a ceasefire that Israel did not observe.
There it is. That's how he wiggles out of it. He says, hey, look, Israel breaking the deal, that doesn't necessarily drag the United States in or anything. I mean, just because they go in doesn't mean we'll follow them in, right? Yeah, like anybody buys that.
Yeah.
But that's how you wiggle out of it, because otherwise what it looks like is what Marco Rubio said, which is that Israel dragged us into it. We knew Israel was going to hit, and so we had to hit before they hit because we have to back them up. So it takes them 2 minutes to figure out some kind of bullshit story about how, hey, now look, Israel should break the ceasefire, but don't worry, that's not necessarily going to drag the United States back into war. What an obvious pile of horseshit. Like, these people are just a fucking joke. They're a joke, and I wish that's all they were, but they are a cruel and very dark joke because they are fucking with the survival of the entire planet. Of course, if Israel breaks the ceasefire, we're going to get sucked in. That's obvious. That's obvious.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I just froze up. Let me grab.
You're good. I can hear you. I think your camera got disconnected.
Okay. Let me come back in real quick here. My bad.
No problem. Take your time. Take your time. Matt's going to come right back in. There he is. There you are. All right. Okay. Go ahead.
Cool. Yeah. No, you're right. This would be much better if they were just talking this crap and that was it. But they are representing some very serious policy that has been in play all these years, and we're seeing it ramped up in so many ways. And we're not just talking about Iran, we're talking about every single neighboring country of Israel that we've been part of this terrorist, psychopathic, ethnic cleansing policies that we just keep doing over and over. We're piling through Lebanon right now. We're doing the Gaza blueprint of turning into a parking lot just as ethnic cleansing. We're part of all of this. This is not a joke. This is so Israel's going to keep doing what it's going to do, and it's going to rely on what we talked about. The Samson option is in play to say you're either with us or we're going to make an example out of you too. And they're going to keep going until enough of us wake up and get out of this two-party just complete theater and understand that the whole system is working on behalf of Israel. And we all need to wake up and get angry about this and do something about it.
100%. All right. Well, Matt Weinglass, thanks so much for joining. There's the link. I put it in the chat so you can click on it, youtube.com/THL Presents. Please go subscribe to Matt's channel. You do great stuff over there. Great to see you guys doing well. Anything else you got to plug? Anything coming up? I know you're live this afternoon. What's your show schedule? All that stuff.
We're be live here at 3 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to have Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski on. We're going to be talking more about Iran, Israel, also talk about Ukraine. That hasn't come up in a little bit. So we got to see where we're at with that. And I also say, we took a little break. We've been dealing with some family emergency, and we're back to talk about this stuff. This is the hard stuff. We do have an update, which is it's a pretty sad update on our situation with my my father-in-law who did pass away this last Tuesday.
And, we so sorry to hear that, man.
He is yet another victim of the pharma machine that we have been discussing for our entire time on our show, and our audience knows that. So if you guys want to hear more about that, we're going to be getting into that very hard issue in today's show as well. That's coming up 3 o'clock Eastern on the Homeless Left.
All right. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, my friend. But please do keep in touch. Thanks so much for making time for us today. Really, really appreciate it. Great job as always. And have a great show this afternoon. And we'll be in touch. We'd love to bring you back sometime soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Keaton. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. You got it, Matt. Have a great rest of the day. Matt Weinglass, everybody. Round of applause for Matt. Go check out the Homeless Left. Great channel. I've been a guest on their show many times, and so great to have Matt come in today while he can. We still got a lot to get to, folks. I'm not done with you all yet. I'm going to be flying the ship solo from here on out, but we got a lot going on today. So thanks everybody very much for being here, and thanks for liking this stream 692 times. Good for one of these. Let's smash it even harder. Let's smash it even harder, everybody. Thanks very much for being here. Now let's go to some chats and some rants. Vienticus says, right or wrong, you won't ever get something like reparations because it doesn't mean money is going into the pockets of billionaires and politicians. Thank you, Vienticus. Appreciate that. How do you make holy water? You boil the hell out of it. Good one. I like it. Super sticker from French Laundry. Thanks for the $4.99. Appreciate that very much, my friend. In Star Trek, says Eric Rousseau, Captain Kirk bangs hot aliens, but in real life, aliens are butt raping us. What gives? Good one. The thought, says Nocturnal Human, from the most knowledgeable scientist, is that the universe is so big that the space between possible life is impossible travel as it continues to expand. Thank you for that, Nocturnal Human. Vienticus says, just FYI, was a Mexican scientist that calculated the warp field bubble. You see? Aliens. Thank you, Vienticus. Appreciate that very much. All right. Let's move down the list here. Sorry about that. Got some more over here. Nong 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 says, when Russ is back, I'd like to hear him and Butch Ware discuss the condition of the Uyghurs in Xinjiang. I recall Butch suffering from some serious imperialist disinformation there. So thanks for bringing that up. There's a reason I didn't bring that up. And the reason I didn't bring that up is embedded in the question, because Russell have more to say about that. I'm not versed in that. I could not debate that with him. And so I didn't want to broach the subject if I wasn't prepared to litigate it. And like I said, we have someone who's on the case, as they say. So thanks for bringing that up. And yes, that is a reason why that was not on my list of questions, because ultimately I would just make an idiot of myself if I tried to go there. And why make an idiot of myself when my co-host is going to have more intelligent things to say about that in just a week? So that was my figuring there. So let's see. What did I just do? I hope I didn't delete a couple of chats. I may have lost a couple. I don't think I did. If I did, I'll see if I can go back and find them again. But hey, let's do a quick timeout here. Little business to take care of. And by quick, I mean, I got a quick question. How much control do you actually have over your money right now? Technology has changed everything, and it's changing how money works. And Rumble is on the cutting edge as always. Getting started is easier than you think in the new economy. That's where Rumble Wallet comes in. With Rumble Wallet, you can buy Bitcoin, hold dollar-backed stable coins, and even own digital gold backed by real gold, all in one convenient place. The setup is simple. It connects with MoonPay, so you can use your debit card, credit card, or bank account and be up and running in minutes on Rumble Wallet. And once you're set up, you can tip your favorite Rumble creators like us directly. So it's a great way to support the free speech creator economy and a great way to support your favorite individual creators. Rumble Wallet, of course, takes zero platform fees. So we keep nearly 100% of what you send us. So it's a great way to support this show. The interface is simple and user-friendly. Sending a Rumble rant through your Rumble Wallet is just as easy as when you do it the old-fashioned way. So do this now. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description and download the Rumble Wallet. From there, you can set up your wallet, tap buy, and you're in the game in minutes. Take control of your money and help support our free speech creator economy here on the internet. Get started with Rumble Wallet today by scanning the QR code. You can also go to wallet.rumble.com, or you can just type in Rumble Wallet on the App Store to get started. Okay, let's move right on along here. I think this is the next one in line. When it comes to Trump, whenever someone says some number plus D style of chess game he's playing, the D is for the number of D's in his A. Thank you for that, Vienticus. Appreciate that very much. Always with the sense of humor. Gator Pete says, can't they put the data centers inland 30 to 40 miles and pump seawater to them to cool the centers? Can't wait for Russell. A good question, Gator Pete. Can't wait for Russell to get back. Left California 32 years ago because I saw the collapse. Lil, because it's cheap. Thank you, Gator Pete. You're in Minnesota or Wisconsin? I know you're up in one of those two states. I forget which. But thank you, of course, for your support, my friend. Appreciate that very much. Let me get this sorted out here. There we go. We're going to move that there. Then we're going to move this here. All right, there we go. Juggling screens over here for your viewing pleasure, everybody. Let's please keep smashing that like button over there. 726. Thanks, everybody, very, very much for being here. On Sunday evening, we will have Garland Nixon in the co-host seat. He'll be joining us for the first time. Looking forward to that. That'll be a great show, but we got plenty more to cover this afternoon, of course. So let's get started. We just did a segment on our last episode about the University of Michigan professor giving a kind word to the pro-Palestine protesters on campus, and the university coming out and apologizing, saying he went off script. He wasn't supposed to say that. We're sorry for all the hurt feelings in the audience, even though the audience went wild. Well, it is that time of year where commencement speeches are happening. They're being planned and in some cases being canceled. And that was the case at Rutgers University. Rami Elghandour says, I love Rutgers, and it's disappointing and heartbreaking to see it abandon its students and its ideals. My full statement. So here's a pro-Palestine speaker, one of the producers on the new film, The Voice of Hind Rajab, which, by the way, is available now to watch online. I'm going to watch it over the weekend. I'll probably have a review for it on Sunday. I didn't realize it was available now, but you can rent it now on the various platforms. And so I urge you to go and do that. He is an executive producer on the film, and his speech was pulled by Rutgers University. So here's his statement. Rutgers first gave me the honor of being a convocation speaker for this year's engineering graduation. They've now given me an even greater honor. After a few, in quotes, students complained about my selection as speaker because of my social media advocacy for Palestine, Rutgers has canceled my speech. They decided that the feelings of a handful of students who say that my social media posts opposed their beliefs were more important than the experience of the entire graduating class, the reputation of the school, the dignity and belonging of Arab and Muslim students, and the First Amendment. I have not and will not waver on my principles. I stand by my commitment to human rights and American democracy. Only those who fear the truth leverage institutional power to silence it. Rutgers chose me in part because of my humanitarian work. They put my role as an executive producer for the Oscar-nominated The Voice of Hind Rajab front and center. They led with an Oscar-nominated film. So you have an Oscar-nominated speaker here, and you cancel on him. They led with my social justice advocacy until it was inconvenient. That's the difference between virtue signaling and principles. One withstands challenge, the other wilts in the slightest breeze. Yeah, if he had been a progressive social justice advocate on every other issue and kept his mouth shut about Israel-Palestine, he'd have had no problem. And this just exposes the hypocrisy of these institutions, which we talked about a lot in the last segment. But this gets even worse. It gets even crazier, which is why I've decided to do this segment, even though it does share some DNA with one that we just covered a couple days ago. So he continues, the message Rutgers is sending to the class and everyone around the country is alarming. Don't dare stand for anything. Don't dare speak up. There will be consequences for being a humanitarian, for advocating for social justice and equality. Avoid people and ideas that contradict your own. Cancel them if you can. I love Rutgers, and it's both heartbreaking and disappointing to see it abandon its students and its ideals. Ironically, the essence of my convocation speech is being yourself and choosing kindness, that you can build a life consistent with your values, that you don't have to choose between success and principles. Rutgers leadership clearly does not believe in these values. 100%. 100%. None of these colleges do. None of these institutions do. But they can't stop me from sharing them. I'm recording my speech and will post it soon. Good for you. Class of 2026, you can listen to what they didn't want you to hear and decide for yourselves. That's the beauty of democracy. I hope the speech leads you to be better leaders than those who let you down. Good on him. Good on him. I can't wait for that to surface. We'll cover that when it does. So he sits down with Zateo. Here is the canceled speaker. Here is the canceled man himself talking about this affair.
For years, I've gone to sleep and woken up looking at images of massacred children that look like my children and a lot of my friends and family's children. And that's very hard. It's hard to fathom that as it is. And then to have basically this country and its leadership constantly criminalize the victims from speaking up against their oppressors. Just what kind of world are we building? You know, I'm one of these people, like I've been really successful, but I haven't managed to, you know, as our current president once said, I guess I wasn't smart because I actually managed to pay my taxes. I paid a ton of taxes, 54% consistently for a long time. Numbers I won't bore you with, but are quite significant. And I would love those numbers to go to my kids' schools and to help, you know, develop our country and develop infrastructure. I was just in Japan, universal health care, amazing train system, clean streets, common sense policies. I'll tell you a funny anecdote. I guess the non-smokers in Japan.
Okay, so basically, he's a rich guy. He's a rich guy, right? He's a businessman, right? Not a communist, not a radical. How do you think you get to be executive producer on a film. You give money. That's mostly how you get that executive producer label. Not saying that is how he got it, but from what it sounds like, he doesn't sound like a creative type necessarily. He sounds like a guy who gave him some money. So he gets canceled.
Complained that the smokers were getting too many breaks, and they actually figured out how long those breaks add up to. And now if you're a non-smoker, you get 6 extra days of vacation. Can you even imagine someone in the US thinking about their citizens to the degree that something like this would come to pass? It's impossible. We are so beholden, like Post Citizens United, we're so beholden to special interest. We have Israeli billionaires giving hundreds of millions of dollars to candidates so that they can annex the West Bank. And it's just, between the genocide, between the West Bank, I mean, I would still be very sad about all of this if we weren't involved. But it is just hard to fathom that my hard work goes to bombing hospitals and massacring children and all of the awful things that we do. And look at what we're doing in Iran now, and even things that are not in the Middle East, like Cuba.
What's all this
what
hate?
Are we doing? Like, what do we stand for?
That's
Like,
hate.
America is supposed to be this shining city on a hill. Like, I really believe and love this country. It has made all of my dreams come true. But like, I would love for it to continue to make the dreams come true for other people. But that is increasingly not happening, right? Like, look at all these, like, we have that when a minimum wage hasn't moved. We don't have universal health care. We are not a leading country in the world. We're just not. It's not realistic. And where is all of our money going? To bomb kids in the Middle East? Like, how is this a thing? Like, in the 21st century, like, what are we doing?
That guy's not allowed at Rutgers. Too much for Rutgers, that guy. Incredible. Well, let's hear how the local news spins this story. Here is their report on how this all unfolded.
Rutgers University has rescinded its invitation to a speaker at the School of Engineering graduation.
Administrators at the school say it's because of his anti-Israel comments that made some students there uncomfortable. Christine Sloan has details from New Brunswick.
Rami Elghandour was scheduled to speak at the Rutgers Engineering School's graduation, but the university withdrawing the invitation, citing to CBS News New York a social media post where Elghandour said this about Israel, that, quote, forget a free ride. They've committed genocide. They're running dungeons where they train dogs to sexually assault prisoners. The rabbi who leads Rutgers Chabad calls the post disturbing.
Sometimes we may be angry.
Hey, don't kill the messenger, man. I agree, it's disturbing. It's his fault. It's everything he said there is true. Everything he said there is backed up by like verified reporting. It's disturbing that he said that. I think it's more disturbing that Israel does that. I think that's what I find pretty disturbing. Not that this guy tweeted about it.
Whatever the reason, but to go to that exaggeration level.
It's not an exaggeration.
Words such as dogs and dungeons.
Rutgers University releasing.
What did he say?
Exaggeration level of using words such as dogs and dungeons.
Using words such as dogs and dungeons. What he's trying to do there, understand this is how propaganda works. There's no piece of phrasing that's accidental. Nothing is by accident. So when the rabbi there says he's using words such as dogs and dungeons, what he wants the audience to come away with is that the guy called Israelis dogs. That's what he's trying to communicate. Now, he can't communicate that explicitly because that would be a lie. So the way you craft public statements is very deliberate. There's intention behind all of it. None of it is by accident. That's why he phrased it deliberately, vaguely, to smear the guy as having said something that he did not say. What the guy did say in his tweet was that Israelis use dogs to assault prisoners, which, as we all know, is documented.
Rutgers University releasing a statement saying, quote, this decision keeps the focus on our engineering students and honors the celebratory spirit of the event to ensure that no graduate feels forced to choose between their personal convictions and a convocation ceremony. But the council...
Okay, so what if you had graduates there who, didn't think that biological males should be swimming against biological females? Would you tell them, you know what, we're going to cancel the pro-trans? No, of course not, because that's part of the social justice milieu that you don't find threatening. And so you would tell the social conservatives there, suck it up. You don't have to agree with everything. But on this issue, one person raises their hand and says, I'm offended. You have to shut it down. This is the wokest shit you could ever think of. This is snowflakeism on steroids.
So on American Islamic Relations New Jersey is blasting the university.
It's not like any of his speech was hateful speech or bigoted speech. It was calling for an end to genocide, calling for human rights and accountability. So it was disappointing, especially this happened just, I want to say 2 weeks after Rutgers welcomed IDF soldiers on campus.
What? What? You mean it gets worse? You mean it gets even worse? What did she just say?
And accountability. So it was disappointing, especially this happened just, I want to say 2 weeks after Rutgers welcomed IDF soldiers on campus.
They invited
and its
IDF soldiers on
reject
campus.
the term genocide, calling actions in Gaza self-defense against the terror group Hamas. We reached out to Elghandour but did not hear back. On X, though, the entrepreneur calling Rutgers' decision heartbreaking and claiming a handful of students complained and adding, quote, "I stand by my commitment to human rights and American democracy." But Rabbi Yosef Karlebach says he got complaints.
So we're very happy that the people at the head of the school realize that they have made a mistake. We hope that they are more careful with who they choose in the future, and that their choices of people are going to be people that encourage peace.
I think this sends a clear message to the Rutgers community, to the community at large, about whose interests and whose comfort levels they take into consideration.
The engineering school's convocation is scheduled for May. No word yet on who will be the speaker. At Rutgers in New Brunswick, Christine Sloan, CBS News, New York.
So notice they brushed right past where the woman said, hey, they invited an IDF soldier just a couple weeks ago. So I looked into who was that IDF soldier, and sure enough, it's this video. You remember this video. If you're on X, you've seen this video. This video went everywhere. This video went super viral. This was at the Rutgers campus. April 27th, Rutgers had an Israeli soldier speak on campus. This hero wasn't having it. So here's this kid who stood up in protest. This was at the very campus that just canceled this anti-genocide speaker.
Over 70,000 Palestinians. The IDF has killed over 300 journalists. The IDF has targeted children. The IDF have killed over 1,700 healthcare workers. The IDF have targeted children. Hind Rajab, 6-year-old, was shot 335 times. 335 times. When my grandmother, my Jewish grandmother, told me about the Holocaust, she told me never again. This is not never again. Never again means never again for everybody. And if justice is real, then the IDF will go down. You guys will be prosecuted at the Hague.
So that was Rutgers University. That's the same university that canceled this speech. Now, a few students expressed concern for Rami's pro-Palestine views. So let's see how many didn't. Students protest Israeli soldier speaking event on campus. So that kid was not alone. He got up and said something at the event. But turns out there were a whole lot of Rutgers kids outside protesting his appearance. Students and community members gathered Thursday evening in a demonstration to oppose a speaking event with Israeli military soldiers organized by the Rutgers chapter of Students Supporting Israel. This gets even worse. It gets even worse, if you can believe it. The event, titled Triggered the Ceaseless Tour, featured a talk by a soldier who shared his experience serving in the Israeli military. The demonstration against his appearance began outside of the College Avenue gym and traveled across campus, amassing around 200 people over the course of the protest. Demonstrators chanted, gave speeches, and marched around the College Avenue campus to oppose the Students Supporting Israel, SSI, event, as well as to show support for the people of Palestine. So, a couple hundred people, pretty big crowd here. As you can see, these are a couple of the photos from the article. A representative from the Muslim Public Relations Council, which helped lead the demonstration, called it disgusting for a student organization to invite a member of a foreign military that she said is responsible for genocide. MPRC had organized the protest following backlash to the soldiers' invitation. This club that is hosting this soldier, here it is funded by Rutgers University. So our tuition money is going towards allowing this event and allowing this soldier to speak and spread propaganda on our campus, the demonstration leader said. We absolutely are not okay with it, so that's why we're here today. According to documents from the RUSA Allocations Board, SSI received nearly $6,000 in funding from student fees for the spring 2026 semester. So let's just recap. They invite an IDF soldier to speak at their campus. The club that did that apparently gets funding from the university, which means part of every student's tuition at this university goes towards funding a group that invited the IDF to come speak. They protest that. Then at the graduation, a man is invited who's going to give an anti-genocide speech, and they cancel on him before he can get a word out of his mouth. Excuse me. That was a mouthful, but I felt that all bared repeating. That's Rutgers University. Glenn Greenwald said Zionists and Israel loyalists are the greatest threat to free speech and free inquiry in the West, and that's no close second. So here you have an example even more outrageous than the University of Michigan example. I thought that was pretty outrageous that they would apologize for their professor's speech. In this case, they're going the extra mile and nipping it in the bud. So if you're a student at Rutgers University, understand you pay to have IDF soldiers come and give speeches at your campus. And when another perspective is invited to give a speech and a few students, maybe students in the SSI organization, say, no, we don't want them there, the university backtracks. They shut it down. Absolutely disgraceful. I'm a broken record on this, but part of why I cover these stories is to just show you that these institutions of, quote, higher learning are institutions of indoctrination. And more than that, they are vessels through which to funnel people of progressive persuasion into a regressive, capitalist, militarist, yes, imperialist system. For all their talk about anti-colonial theory, here you have, when those ideas get put to a test, you see what side they're on. It's not even close. It's not even a question. Just absolutely despicable. And so when Columbia University put their students through that, what did I say? I said, you should not go. You should not go there. People should not be enrolling in universities that do this. These colleges should just be starved of any support, of any enrollment. They want fucking IDF chuds at their campus. Let them enroll. Let them enroll. Drop the pretense that you stand for anything other than institutional advantage, because that's all this is really about. That's all any of these colleges are about at the end of the day. None of them actually put their money where their big fat fucking mouths are. And it's really shameful. It's really, really shameful. So that's my 2 cents on that. Hope you enjoyed that. We're going to move right on along here. Vienticus says, of course I'm going to send you a book. I need you to wave something around and say, hey, look at this bullshit someone wants you to buy. Thanks, Vienticus. Appreciate that. EO Shush says, let me guess, prepare your people and tell them when Jesus died, he went to planet Xenu for 2,000 years and then came back and was reborn as Donald Trump to save us from the trans immigrants. That's right. That's right. Good one, EO Shush. Appreciate that. Oh, George from Haifa says, hey, guys, all great guests tonight. Kay, perhaps it's time to add America, fuck yeah, to the board. If not now, it's there. It's on there. I just can't work the board. I tried working the soundboard when Jimmy was on the show, and it froze and kicked me out of the thing. So I don't know what's going on with my soundboard, but it has not been working. But it is on there. It is on there, oh, George. Okay. EO Shush. And Keaton, you seem stressed about where to direct your kids amid the uncertainty of the future of AI. Good news. The only jobs in the future will be YouTube music reviewers. Ha! Good one. Hey, good segue. I got to take advantage of a segue because my shuffle pod has been on somewhat of a hiatus lately, but it does return today with the top 5 albums of 1995, which will be premiering at 3:15 over on YouTube. So if you want to head over there after the stream, in fact, if you're watching on YouTube, you'll be redirected there after the stream. But yeah, looking forward to that. See that $? We got monetized. We're YouTube partners there. So now we are in business. We are officially in business at the Shuffle Pod. So go over there and please hit that subscribe button. Some nice escapist fun, youtube.com/@shufflepod. I feel like we can all use some of that in our lives. That'll be coming up after this stream. And then, of course, head over to the Homeless Left, which will be going on for 4 hours. So you have a whole afternoon planned out. We're taking you into the evening here. youtube.com/@shufflepod. Go check it out after this stream over on YouTube. Thanks for that plug, EO Shush. See how I worked that segue in? You see that? Do you see that? Okay. Vientikis should call it Project Freedom for billionaires to traffic more children. Thank you for that. Appreciate that, Vientikis. They say 95 was a great year. 95 was a very strong year. You know, I said 90. I say this in the episode. 95 was strong and not strong at the same time. I felt like there were a whole lot of really good albums in 95, but to me, it was light on like masterpieces. That's just how I see it. But a lot of really good stuff, though. Vienticus Prime should call it Project Freedom. Oh, sorry, got that one already. Millraven, Jesse Waters, or Jedi Waters. The freedom has great power over coping minds. Thank you, Millraven. Appreciate that. Peter Monahan says, so true. MP and Cash are going to prove theology and God doesn't exist. Yeah, imagine if they prove that there is no God after all the Christian right has done to support them. That would be pretty funny. I would love to see like fucking like Matt Walsh or one of them or like Benny Johnson have to come up there and sort of polish that. See how they cope with the UFOs. Vienticus, at this point, I'd reply to the proposed framework with a flaming bag of dog shit on the porch. Thank you, Vienticus. Satanica says, love from Bahrain. Big fan of Dr. Ware. Thank you, Satanica. Appreciate that. Yeah, I really enjoyed that talk with Butch Ware. That was great. Really, really nice guy. Super easy to talk to, which is great. Okay, what do we got over here? I would love, says Peter Monahan, I would love to watch Trump even play 1D chess. Thank you, Peter Monahan. D.T. Kennedy missed the interview. Was Butch Ware still on his Uyghur genocide bullshit? Yeah, so if you missed the interview, I don't know if you missed the last super chat, but the reason I did not bring that up is because Russ is coming back from China and he will have a more educated take on that than I could have mustered. So I gave him a softball interview. I didn't bring that part up. If we had a little more time, I would have gotten into that a little more broadly. You know, the problem is you can't pick an argument that you're not equipped to see through. Like I would have had to research that like for a couple of days in order to really be able to like discuss that. So, you know, I felt it would be a disservice to both myself and the audience and to him, quite frankly, to just bring something up that I am like not prepared to really reckon with in an intelligent way. Especially when my co-host is literally going to be talking about that, among other things, when he gets back next week. To answer the question, someone asked, the problem with using seawater to cool is that the brine will corrode the heat and exchange pipes. The purer the water, the less corrosion that happens. Thank you, Vientikis. Appreciate that. For FYI, the locals call it Slutgers. That place has always been a joke that's fluffed itself up. Rutgers and Robert Wood Johnson have swallowed up a lot of New Brunswick. Oh, so it's a swallower school too? The swallowing Slutgers. That's what they should call it. I think you got something there, Vientikis. Let's see. In the 90s, Rutgers was like the 76th percentile of universities. A decade ago, they were top 20%. They didn't change. Diploma mills came around. I believe it, Vientikis. I believe you, my friend. Okay, let's move right on along here. Okay, so this is a related story to the one we just did. It's a little bit of an old story, but it just came up again for obvious reasons. So, Rutgers University cancels the engineering school graduation speech by Rami Elghandour, the executive producer of the Oscar-nominated The Voice of Hind Rajab. It's frightening that speaking about injustice and crime is now more costly than committing them. Okay, so that was the speaker that Rutgers just canceled. We covered that in a separate segment if you're watching the clip version of this. And so Prem Thacker, who interviewed Rami, said, apropos of nothing, recall that there was very recently a concerted effort led by top Hollywood executives and insiders to smear the Voice of Hind Rajab as one-sided and propaganda, all to stop it from winning an Oscar. So yeah, The Voice of Hind Rajab was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film. And even though No Other Land won in the documentary category the year prior, Voice of Hind Rajab did not win this year. And so this sheds a little light into how and why the vote went the way it did. And what do you know? Inside the pro-Israel campaign to stop The Voice of Hind Rajab from winning an Oscar, an obscure group of entertainment industry professionals is smearing the film The Voice of Hind Rajab in a concerted effort to stop it from winning an Oscar for Best International Feature Film. Now, this is written in the present tense because this article was written in the run-up to the Oscars. Now, of course, we know it did not win. While the group purports it to be apolitical, it has ties to a pro-Israel organization that shut down speech in the U.S. The Voice of Hind Rajab is an Oscar-nominated documentary drama film that depicts the Palestinian Red Crescent's response to the Israeli military's brutal killing of 5-year-old Hind Rajab and her family members, a case known around the world as emblematic of the Israeli government's ruthless genocide of Palestine. The Creative Community for Peace, CCFP, an influential organization in Los Angeles, is smearing the film, whose executive producers include Brad Pitt, Joaquin Phoenix, Rooney Mara, and Jonathan Glazer, as propaganda and manipulation, casting doubts on the circumstances that led to her killing by Israeli soldiers. That's why I had a feeling this might win, because if they voted for No Other Land and the film has those kind of names attached to it, those names have big cachet in Hollywood, but I guess not as much as the Creative Community for Peace, quote unquote. According to its website, the CCFP was founded in 2012 by David Renzer, the former chairman and CEO of Universal Music Publishing, and Steve Schnurr, who is the president of Music and Electronic Arts and the former chairman of the Grammy Foundation. The group describes itself as an apolitical organization that's made up of, quote, prominent members of the entertainment community, and says it strives to provide balance to the discourse regarding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Yeah, they're interested in providing balance because, you know, Hollywood, so anti-Israel, they just have to balance that out. Hollywood, just a hotbed of pro-Palestine radicalism. We need this organization to kind of balance all that out, do we not? The CCFP counts professionals from Warner Brothers, Sony, Atlantic Records, Amazon, and more as members of its advisory board and networking committee. Its annual gala has been sponsored by a wide range of companies and individuals, including the foundations of Lev Blavatnik, a Russian oligarch, and Casey Wasserman, chairman of the Los Angeles Organizing Committee for the 2028 Olympics, both of whom are featured in the Jeffrey Epstein files. Wow, that is really shocking. CCFP's campaign against the Voice of Hind Rajab has involved communications with voting members and campaigning efforts online. An Oscar-worthy film should tell the full story, they say. This is a quote. The Voice of Hind Rajab presents a one-sided and misrepresented account of a Palestinian child's tragic death. Be aware, she was shot over 300 times, along with her family, in a car. The group complains online. Her life deserves dignity, and the truth of how she died matters, it continues. By omitting critical context, the film turns tragedy into political propaganda. Can you believe these fucking people? That is unacceptable. and it should not be rewarded as serious, responsible filmmaking. There's so much to say about this. Number one, obviously, by now, we know the truth of what happened to Hind Rajab, shot hundreds of times by the IDF after her family was killed in the car. Second, since when is it incumbent on filmmakers to provide the full context for a story that they're telling? That is not the task of filmmakers at all. The task of filmmakers is to tell a story. In fact, one of the first things you learn when you study dramatic writing or screenwriting, as I have, as someone who way back when wanted to be in the film business and in the theater business, as someone who's written some plays and some screenplays myself, the first thing you learn when you go to write a story is to strip it down to its most basic parts. In other words, not to worry about the context of the entire story, but to tell a story from beginning to end. Distill everything down to a specific conflict with specific characters who want specific things and overcome specific obstacles in order to get those things. So in this case, the story is the effort to save this girl. And they use actual audio of her voice in the film. So the idea that this Hollywood organization is going to say, well, you're omitting context and turning it into political propaganda, it's not responsible filmmaking. That's nonsense. Absolute nonsense. The CCFP has attacked other films depicting Palestinian history and suffering, including the Oscar-winning documentary No Other Land, whose crewmate filmed himself being killed by an Israeli settler shortly after winning, and Palestine 36. That's coming out, I guess, later this year. The CCFP also runs high-level trips to Israel, or it might have even been released and just kind of came and went because organizations like this decided it shouldn't be seen by too many people. I remember seeing trailers for that film like last year. The CCFP also runs high-level trips to Israel for entertainment industry leaders and offers services to industry agents and artists to navigate performing in Israel and batting away accusations against the nation internationally, accused of genocide. Okay, so we're getting a pretty clear picture of this organization that applied a negative campaign against the voice of Hind Rajab, the movie. Here is Hind Rajab's mother saying the war took her dreams and she wanted to be a doctor.
From the moment Hind was born, she had a beautiful scent. I used to wish that I could keep that scent with me so that when I felt sad, it would come back and comfort me. And truly, when she was killed, that scent came back to me. It felt like a kind of consolation.
When she was a baby and as she was growing, did she have an awareness that she lived in a place that war could break out at any time, that Gaza was a place that could become incredibly dangerous for her and others?
In Gaza, there's always war, always escalation. But when Hind was born, like any child here, we had a home. We were a complete family. Despite the siege and the hardship, we lived and felt like we had our own little world. I raised Hind believing she had rights, the right to life and the right to safety. She had many dreams. She wanted to become a doctor. Then the war came and took all her dreams and took her whole life.
I want to talk about that day and what happened. Just talk me through those moments, those decisions, what you thought was going to happen next. And what was the last thing you said to Hind before you left, before you got into your cars?
That night was extremely hard. There was heavy shelling from every direction. Like most people, we didn't have food or supplies to survive if the army entered. We had nothing that would let us stay 2 or 3 weeks without food. So we decided to leave, and we had to leave quickly. It wasn't really our choice. Evacuation comes when the army gets close. We had children with us, and the place we were in was unlivable. That night, I had a strange feeling, like my heart was being squeezed. I said, I'm exhausted. I feel like something bad is going to happen. I held Hind in my arms and looked at her eyelashes. I said, God, my love, how beautiful your eyelashes are. God willing, one day I'll put makeup on you when you're a bride. And this hair, God willing, I'll brush it when you're a graduate. I was looking at her face as if I somehow knew I was going to lose her.
So there's some context for the scumbags at the CCFP, whatever Orwellian thing that stands for again. I forget. What is it? Sent the Creative Community for Peace. Ran a negative campaign against this movie to deny it an Oscar win, which, you know, we talk about how these award shows are bullshit. They are bullshit for a lot of reasons, but one of the things they're good for is highlighting certain films that otherwise would not be highlighted, like No Other Land. No Other Land got a very wide audience to the extent that it got a wide audience because it won the Oscar. And I think it is because that film won that this organization decided to redouble its efforts and make sure that this one does not see the light of day in the way that No Other Land has. But The Voice of Hind Rajab is now available online. You could rent it for a very low price. I encourage you to please do that. Please support that film. And I'm glad this story came to our focus because, of course, one of the producers of this film is the recently canceled would-be Rutgers speaker. So hopefully one of the silver linings of his speech getting canceled is that people get to know more about him and about his work, including his role as an executive producer of The Voice of Hind Rajab, which, of course, I encourage you all to give a watch. It's not a long movie. It's about an hour and a half. I do plan to watch it over the weekend and perhaps review it. Pardon me, this Sunday night. Okay, let's move right on along here, folks. Got one more segment for you all, but before then, let's go to some chats and some rants. We all must stand up and condemn when empire uses one identity group to propagandize us all. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. David Hughes over on Rumble says, hey, if you movie buffs like free books, let me send you my new book, The Unmaking of Hudson Hawk, out Monday. All right. Congratulations on the new book there. What is this? All right. What the hell is that? The YouTube let you post YouTube let you post that? It's pretty good. You got that past the censors, whatever the hell that was. All right. I give you points for creativity, whatever the hell that was. Let's see here. Oh, come on. Here we go. Sorry, StreamYard's being a little slow, being a little annoying today. Not too annoying, but a little bit. Here we go. Dimitri Mugianis says, just a reminder that even though No Other Land won, it was blocked from any kind of distribution deal. Solidarity from Harlem. That's right. Thank you, Dimitri. They had to do the sort of film tour that, you know, the way they used to in the old days, you know, in the 70s, they would have these road show sort of prints that they would just take from movie house to movie house. If a film didn't get like a widespread distribution deal, the filmmakers would just make prints of them, which were very costly back in the day. And those prints would travel from theater to theater. That's why on a lot of the like broadcast versions of a lot of these like cult classic films, you see them, the image is kind of grainy and beat up and torn up. That's because the print that ended up being digitized was one of those roadshow prints that just played in different locations and got dinged up along the way. So kind of part of the charm of it 50 years later, but that's kind of how they had to do The Voice of Hind Rajab. Obviously, it's digital format now, so they didn't have to spend whatever it cost, 20 grand to make a 35 millimeter print of the film. But they had to basically just take it from house to house and show it that way. And it's such an urgent story. It's an amazingly made film, and it's such a great film. And you know, the reason they suppress these films is because they tell the very simple story of the very severe evil that is being perpetrated in our name and with our money. And they know that the truth of that is just so plain and simple. First scene of the movie, these Palestinian villagers are living their lives. Bulldozers roll up, tear down the houses. The IDF soldiers are there. to keep the peace, quote unquote, in case anyone has a problem with the fact that their houses are just being destroyed. That's in the West Bank. Oh, Hamas in the West Bank. That is the reality that these people live through all day, every day. And it's as simple as could be. It's as simple as could be. The inhumanity of it, the evil of it is just in plain sight. And that's why these stories are suppressed the way they are. Very, very simple. Nothing too complicated about it at all. Okay, let's move right on along here. Folks, did our seniors in the audience know that millions of you are on the wrong Medicare plan and you don't know it? It happens because when you're trying to figure out Medicare, when you turn 65, you end up talking to brokers who work on commissions who are incentivized to sell you specific plans that you may or may not need. And so the income of the person on the phone depends on which plan you enroll in, which of course makes them not so much an advisor, but a salesperson with a conflict of interest. So you end up making a choice based on advice that was never designed to help you. And that's how millions of people end up on the wrong plan. Chapter is the exception. They are the only national advisor that compares every plan in the country. Their advisors are salary-based, so there's no hidden incentives on their end. You tell them your doctors, you tell them your prescriptions and your situation, and they do the work of finding a plan that fits your needs. And if that plan is one you're already on, then that's the end of the conversation. Either way, you'll get off the phone knowing that you made the right call. It's free. It's no obligation. Got nothing to lose. It takes 20 minutes, and you speak to a person right away. So give them a call at the number they set up just for dissidents, 404-706-0804. If you're turning 65 or already on Medicare, call that number. Click the link in the description if you are more inclined to visit them online. But I got to say, they recommend that you give them a call because you get to speak to a person very, very quickly. No endless menus. Press 1 for this, 2 for that, 3 for the other thing. Chapter, it's 20 minutes. It's risk-free, 404-706-0804. All right, let's see where we are at here. We got one more segment to bring you this afternoon. Kind of a local story here. That's right, kind of a local story. There was some protest activity in New York City this week outside the Israeli real estate event in New York where illegal land sales are being advertised. Reporting by Timmy Facciola here. This is a video that DropSite posted to their X account.
We don't want no Tuesday. We remember 48. We don't want no Tuesday. We remember 48.
Pro-Palestinian and pro-Israel demonstrators rally outside synagogue. Fairly comprehensive write-up here in the New York Times. Dueling crowds of protesters rallied outside a pro-Israel event at one of New York's most prominent modern Orthodox synagogues for the second time in 6 months on Tuesday, sending the city down a familiar and acrimonious path as the conflict in the Middle East once again spilled over into its streets. A few hundred pro-Palestinian demonstrators gathered outside the synagogue, Park East on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, after it was advertised as the location of the Great Israel Real Estate event. The evening promotes American real estate purchases in Israel and Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank, the latter of which most of the world considers to be illegal. Dozens of pro-Israel counter-demonstrators also assembled at the site. Demonstrators traded chants and insults while a heavy police presence kept the groups away from each other and from the synagogue. Intermittent scuffles broke out throughout the evening, mainly between the police and pro-Palestinian demonstrators, but there were no arrests, the police said. No arrests at the protest. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators chanted, "Long live the Intifada," and "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," slogans that many pro-Israel groups view as calls for violence. Some counter-protesters chanted, "There is no Palestine." course, neither of those are calls for violence. The Intifada means the great shrugging off, as Max Blumenthal says, or struggle. First Intifada was entirely peaceful. Famously, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free means equal rights for everyone between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. It is actually the Israelis who use the phrase from the river to the sea with the sort of genocidal connotations that we will purge this land of Palestinians and or keep them as second-class and third-class citizens between the river and the sea. So neither of those are calls for violence. But you know what is kind of a call for violence? What we're going to read in the next paragraph. Nearby, a man slowly walked around the pro-Palestinian crowd, filming them while wearing a T-shirt with the logo of the Jewish Defense League, an extremist group of which an offshoot was linked to the attempted assassination of a Palestinian activist in March. That is a reference, of course, to Nurdin Kiswani, who was targeted by, yes, a Jewish terrorist group or an offshoot of the JDL. So seems like there was somebody in the pro-Israel crowd, at least one, who was displaying an explicit endorsement of violence. Mayor Zoran Mamdani condemned the event on Tuesday. Sam Raskin, his spokesman, said Mr. Mamdani was deeply opposed to the event because it included the promotion of the sale of land and the settlements in the occupied West Bank. These settlements are illegal under international law and deeply tied to the ongoing displacement of Palestinians, Mr. Raskin said. He added, our administration has also been clear that we are committed to ensuring safe entry and exit from any house of worship and that such access never be in question while all protesters are able to exercise their First Amendment rights. So, in other words, you can protest, you can counter-protest, you can't block entrance to or from the event. Here's Zoran Mamdani giving his honest opinion, quote-unquote, on the sales event.
Honest opinions about the fact that when we have a real estate expo that is promoting the sale of land, which includes the sale of land in occupied West Bank, in settlements that are a violation of international law, that is something that I firmly disagree with, and that I also believe that many New Yorkers firmly disagree with, because it has been at the heart of an ongoing effort to displace Palestinians from their homes.
Other elected officials saw it differently. Michael Lasher, an assemblyman who is running in the Democratic congressional primary for the district that includes Park East, said the protest was intended to create fear in the hearts of Jewish New Yorkers and stigmatize our community. This is part and parcel of the rising anti-Semitism that we are facing, he said. Whatever your politics, whatever your views, this is not the New York way and should be condemned. What do you mean, whatever your politics, whatever your views? It wasn't a religious event. It was a land sale. It was a land sale on stolen land. It was a sale of illegal settlement properties, which makes it an inherently political event. So you can't say whatever your politics, whatever your views. You could say that if they were out there protesting a religious service, which there are laws against impeding people's ability to practice their freedom of religion, as Don Levin seems to be learning the hard way right now. But that is not what this was. This was not a religious event. Nobody's rights were being violated by these protests. And furthermore, we just read, we just showed you, the police were there to do crowd control so that no one's path inside or outside of the building was impeded. So what's not the New York way? This is how they operate. They seek to conflate, and we've said this a million times, you feel like a broken record saying it, but you have to keep saying it because this is the exact example of equating Zionism and Judaism. We're going to have an illegal land sale inside a place of worship, which means to protest this illegal land sale looks like you're protesting Judaism because they're having it at a synagogue, when really the two have nothing to do with each other, as stated, as emphasized by many of the Jewish protesters who were there in opposition to this event. So here's Walter Masterson. Park East Synagogue is holding a sale of stolen West Bank land. This is a violation of fair housing law and the Geneva Convention. Selling stolen land inside of a holy place is a desecration. Now, the fair housing law, of course, represents a question of jurisdiction. I don't know if it is within the city's authority or the state's authority to shut down an event, since the land in question is outside of their jurisdiction. Once again, I will plead ignorance on that point. This is once again the price of doing the show by myself, not getting to really dig into the weeds on a question like that. But seems to me, from the cursory amount of research I was able to do, that they can't actually shut the event down itself because the land in question is outside the jurisdiction of the city. That may be true, that may not be true. I wish I had time to dig more into that, but honesty is the best policy. I simply did not have the time to do that. So here we go. Let's take a look at this video.
East Synagogue in the Upper East Side of Manhattan. There is a land sale of stolen West Bank land. This is a real estate sale. The protesters that are here are not protesting Jews. They're not protesting Judaism. Zionism is not Judaism. Zionism is not Judaism, sir.
I'm a Jew and I'm a Zionist.
Oh yeah, so you're a Jew and you're a Zionist. Yeah, they're two different things.
Promise the land of Israel to the Jewish people.
He promised an ethno-state?
Define Zionism to me.
Ethno-state Jewish supremacy.
Zionism is not a colonial project because you can't colonize land that was already yours over thousands of years.
Listen, what you guys are doing, you're supporting evil, and then you dare to do this in the name of Judaism and the Jewish religion. This is an embarrassment to our people, and this is a desecration of God's name. The state of Israel is a movement of terrorism, started terrorism way before anybody spoke about it.
Of course I'm a Jew. We're humanitarian Jews that are against murder.
So here's an example of don't judge a book by its cover, because, not to seem shallow, but she kind of presents as a Zionist, but she's not. She's based. So let that be a lesson, kids. Don't judge a book by its cover.
Humanitarian Jews that are against murder. I'm 73 years old. I know since I was 14 that Israel is not a democracy, has never been a democracy. We are here for the rights of people to eat and live and have water and have their homes returned.
We've shown you videos. I probably should have gathered some videos on recent settler violence in the West Bank, but we've done a bunch of segments on that in recent weeks. That's what this event is promoting. This event is not only promoting the sale of stolen land, but is promoting the brutalization of the people whose land that is. That's what's going on here. That's what's going on here. And people are out here protesting peacefully, as they should, of course. And it seems like the NYPD did not make any arrests there. There were some skirmishes with the cops, as there usually are when the cops are doing crowd control. But it does not seem as though this event got particularly out of control as it was framed in much of the media. If it were out of control, there would have been arrests. I could tell you. We've all seen how zealous the NYPD has been in the past when it comes to arresting pro-Palestine protesters. We showed you video in Brooklyn. They just walk up to a bunch of people and just randomly start slapping cuffs on people. We saw a video of that. And that did not happen here. That did not happen here. So they want you to believe that this is a hateful, anti-Semitic protest against a religious group, when really it seems to have been the opposite. Seems to have been a pretty peaceful protest against illegal land sales and the brutalization of people who want nothing but to live with basic dignity and freedom. So Status Quo was on the ground. They got this piece of video. Here is yet another anti-Zionist Orthodox Jew telling John Farina outside the synagogue, auctioning off stolen land.
In a synagogue. This is a criminal event, selling stolen land. They are using the synagogue or misusing the synagogue to put this religious face to it, as they do always, in order to silence the masses.
Exactly. You do it at the synagogue so that you can say it's a religious event, or you can say that to protest it is to protest against a religious group. If they had this at a ballroom in a hotel somewhere, then they would not be able to claim that this was hateful and anti-Semitic. They could try, but the fact that they have it at a synagogue is to cloak this in Judaism, which means when you look at the rise in anti-Semitism, it is because of this. It is because the Zionists deliberately take steps, very obvious steps, to plant in people's mind that there is no distinction between being a practicing Jew, or even a non-practicing Jew for that matter, and supporting the state of Israel. That is why. That is why. It is a deliberate choice, and it's not subtle. Not at all subtle. Play this back. We'll let this go.
The question is, why in a synagogue? This is a criminal event, selling stolen land. They are using the synagogue or misusing the synagogue to put this religious face to it, as they do always, in order to silence the masses. They want people to think and believe that this is a religious concept and this is a religious activity, and don't you dare to oppose it or condemn it. Therefore, after this happened months ago, they pushed for a bill here in New York City to ban these rallies outside of the synagogues because somehow, supposedly, this is anti-Semitic or anti-God. This is misleading. We were sitting in City Hall and trying to explain to politicians how misleading all of this is. When this illegal event is taking place, now it's Mayor Mamdani of New York City that released a statement saying that this is possible illegal according to international law. This is what Mamdani said.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, man, I mean, this is where I think you have to ask yourself, for all of Mamdani's faults, if Cuomo were the mayor right now, would they be allowed to be out there? Or would they be arrested en masse for being out there? Like, I think there's a meaningful difference there. I do. And, that is certainly not an endorsement of every word that comes out of Mamdani's mouth or every deed of his. But I do think there is likely a very meaningful difference between him in the mayor's mansion and Andrew Cuomo, who we know would have been entirely hostile to these protesters. Andrew Cuomo was promising to adopt the IHRA as a legal standard throughout New York City, which equates the protesting of apartheid to anti-Semitism, calling Israel a racist state. In other words, saying that this is a pro-apartheid event would have been essentially criminalized under Andrew Cuomo. And so I have to believe that these protesters would have had a much harder time of things under him than they do now. And for New York City, that is, I think, a very, very meaningful difference. So let's go on to some super chats and some Rumble rants before we clear things out here, before we close the lights on this stream, as we say. Let's take a look right over here. Our supporters, please, if you like what we do here and you want to help support us, the best way to do so is to become a member. DoDissidents.com/Patreon/Substack or /locals. You can become a member for as little as $5 a month. Perks of membership include your name up in lights here on the screen. You also get call-in access to all of our post-show Q&As, as well as bonus content every month. You get a film club screening with our friends at Right Brain TV. We also get, in addition to that, one post-game live stream with call-in Q&A per month, and of course call-in access to all of our post-show Q&As, which happen every Sunday night. We will be back on Sunday with special guest Garland Nixon. That is the last Sunday of Russell's absence. So coming down the home stretch here of this stint. So we look forward to having Russell back next week, but we have a great show for you with Garland Nixon coming up this Sunday. So we hope you can all tune in for that. All right, let's take a look at what we got here. Mark P. Thicko says all these World War II movies were also biased and one-sided. The Germans were always depicted as the baddies. A wink. Vienticus Prime, the voice of Hind Rajab, is on sale for rental on Amazon currently. I think it's on YouTube as well. I think it's on a lot of the platforms for sale and for rent. So, I mean, support the film. Like, if you can afford to buy it, buy it. If you can just rent it, then rent it. But definitely check it out, because that movie got buried systematically, as we now know. Thank you for that. Kenman says, wow, these Zionist Jews have a lot of fear and feel unsafe about everything. Have they considered therapy? That's right. Vienticus Prime, they feel so unsafe robbing land. Poor them. Oh, boo-hoo. Rothschild's Amalek Nation of Israel trademark. Thank you. Jews are less likely to throw hands, much more likely to battle dance with grandiose gestures. Yeah. Ask Michael Tracy about that. Is Michael Tracy Jewish? I think he's Irish, right? Tracy is an Irish name. The Irish like to throw hands. That's a stereotype. That's terrible. Being chosen as a human shield for Israeli Zionism is such an honor, though. It's almost as good as getting chosen by God. Huh? Good one, username. Andy Gardner, they say when you urinate on something, you own it. Sorry, please pack your bags again. Good news, you have a chance to buy it back at auction. Shalom. Thank you very much for that. Okay. Let's move on right along here. What do we got? I think I got some more here. Let's see. Any more to copy over? Okay, no, just a few more over here. Being chosen. Sorry, got that one already. Liev Schreiber is part of Creative Community for Peace and a Zionist pig. Is that right? Yeah, I don't know. It didn't say what the personnel was, but yeah, I think he is a pro-Israel guy for sure. Stares intently at email box and refuses to move. Thank you, Vienticus. Appreciate that very much. So people are going to know your real name now. They're going to know you're not Vienticus Prime, because when they know who wrote that book, they're going to know who you are. Does that give you pause, Vienticus? I'm just trying to prepare you for what's going on here. Just to get ready. A life in the limelight here. Okay, bad news. I'm sad to say. Mint Press. Okay, so George Odinson. Here we go. Is this O George? Are you O George? Did you just put this over here? Let me see. Yeah, that is O George. I was looking at your profile picture on my other monitor here. So that is oh George. Bad news, I'm sad to say. Mint Press News airstrikes reported across Iran. Is that right? Let's see. Let's take a look. What do we got here? Iran imposes new rules, Strait of Hormuz. Okay, just checking here. What do we got here? Live update, shipping traffic through the strait. Let's see. Let's see anything here. Go to X. See if there's any reporting on that there. No, I don't see anything here. I don't see anything here. Mint Press, you said, had it? Let me look up Mint Press. God. Why do I have such fat fingers? I gotta lose weight. For no other reason than to make my fingers less fat so I could type easier on the phone. I gotta tell my doctor. How do I lose that finger weight? My fingers are missing the keys. Yeah, I don't see anything here, oh George. I don't see anything. But could be the case. Thank you for the heads up there. I'm on the Mint Press main site. Maybe they tweeted it out. I will take a look. But thank you for that heads up. And thank you all very much for being here today. Appreciate you all. As always, had a great show. We want to thank Butch Ware for joining us at the top of the show. We want to thank Matt Weinglass. Let me set up the raid. For Matt Weinglass over here on Rumble. I could do that right now. Let me do that right now. See, it takes a little while, because one of the things that Rumble did when they set up the raid, it would have been a lot easier if they had set up these Rumble raids so that you can raid the stream at any point in the stream. But now you have to time it to right when you end the show, because they'll just redirect your entire audience. We did that with Rex Jones. If you remember a while back, we set the raid up assuming it would raid the stream when we ended, but no, it raided midstream. So our entire audience just got randomly redirected to another show in the middle of the stream. So let's see. I'll get this ready right now before we close the lights here to raid our friend over at the homeless left. There we go. All right. That is now all set. That is set and ready to go. So if you're watching on Rumble, you are going to be redirected to our friend Matt Weinglass's stream. If you're watching on YouTube, you're going to be redirected to the Shuffle Pod, where you will perhaps enjoy my top 5 albums of 1995 countdown, and then go watch Matt Weinglass. So you got options here. We got a whole TV network that we're building today, but we appreciate you all very much for spending the afternoon with us. Thank you for another great week. This is the last Thursday show without Russell Dobular, who will be back 1 week from today. So I want to thank everybody very, very much for being here. Thanks to our guests, Butch Ware and Matt Weinglass. Thanks to the mods for keeping the peace in the chat. Thanks to the YouTubers and the Rumblers. Smash that like button on the way out, please. And thank you very much. Smash that subscribe button on YouTube and the follow button over on Rumble. In before the buzzer is Race Car with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Race Car, for that very much. Let's see. Will it show up here? Yes, it did show up here. Race Car says, hey, as a welcome back gift for Russ, just finished my 500-page treatise on Cheese Whiz. I'm sure he'll appreciate it. There you go. Give him some reading material when he returns. All right, folks. That's all for today. I want to thank you very, very much for being here. We appreciate you very much. Thanks to everybody. And we will see you all Sunday night with special guest host Garland Nixon. Until then, thanks very much again for being here with us this afternoon. Be safe and be well. Courage.
Please clap.